Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we, thy unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interest, prejudice, and partial affection, the results of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the King, the public weal, peace and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity one towards another. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost be with us all evermore. Amen.
Good morning, members, and I want to apologize for the late start. We had some technical difficulties with the internet and cameras. These have been rectified to the point where we can start, but not totally in order as yet. I beg to announce that His Excellency the Governor General has been pleased to assent to the following bill: Public Debt Management. And I'm in receipt of correspondence advising of the absence of the members for Castries Central, Babonneau, Dennery South, and Vieux-Fort North. Honorable members, join me in extending belated birthday wishes to the members from Castries South, Babonneau, and Meekwood South. And on behalf of the Parliament Office, I would like to encourage members to contribute to Faces of Cancer's initiative by giving a monetary donation towards the growth and development of the organization and its members, also known as Cancer Warriors. In this regard, a box has been placed in the lounge. Members, when I was elected Speaker, I sought members' support in ensuring that Parliament, which in my humble view had never been given the recognition it deserved, be accorded the respect assigned to it. 2 years later, I am happy to report that the support of the members for Castries East and Castries South in their capacity as Prime Minister and Leader of Government Business respectively have gone a long way in ensuring that we achieve our goal. To this end, I must tell members that even though we are still not yet concluded the 11th month, 2023, we have had more meeting days and passed more legislation than ever since independence. The statistics would show in the House 2018 13 meetings, 2019 15 meetings, 2020 17 meetings, 2021 16 meetings, 2022 15 meetings, 2023 24 meetings. Statements by ministers. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to read to this Honorable House part of the Caribbean Information Credit Rating Services Limited CARICRIS ratings update on the economy of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, this document is not the truth that we believe or we want to believe, but really the truth. The truth as envisaged by independent experts. So, Mr. Speaker, when you hear about the rumors that the economy is in collapse and this economy is being badly managed, and you hear the delusions of people who have lost government and who refuse to understand that they have lost it, I'm going to read today to you, and I'm going to make it a document of the House for all those who have eyes to see and who can read. We will make it available to all of them so they can see, Mr. Speaker, that their delusions and their wish of doom and gloom on this country, because they have lost power, the wishes of doom and gloom are not going to come to a reality. This report will show that the St. Lucian economy and St. Lucia's credit rating is stable, and there are signs that it will improve in the long run. On September 14th, CARICRIS reaffirmed the issue sovereign credit ratings of BBB-, foreign and local currency ratings on its regional rating scale assigned to the government of St. Lucia. A stable outlook was maintained. Rating sensitivity factors. Factors that could lead to an improvement in the ratings and or outlook include substantial changes in the debt levels leading to a debt to GDP ratio below 65%, achievement of a balanced budget over the medium term, sustained real GDP growth of the order of 3% per annum or more above pre-COVID-19 level. Factors that could lead to a lowering of the ratings and or outlook include significant changes in the fiscal position leading to a fiscal deficit larger than 50% of GDP, substantial changes in the debt levels leading to a sustained debt to GDP in excess of 90% alongside a decline in debt servicing to below 2 times. Rating rationale. Caribbean Information and Credit Rating Services Limited, CARICRIS, has reaffirmed the ratings of BBB-, foreign currency and local currency ratings on its regional rating scale for the several rated debt issues of the government of St. Lucia. These ratings indicate that the level of creditworthiness of these debt obligations adjudged in relation to other debt obligations in the Caribbean is adequate. CARICRIS has also maintained a stable outlook. The stable outlook is based on the improvement in fiscal performance and in debt to GDP from the COVID-19 shock in 2020. Debt ratios have now returned to around the pre-COVID level. Supporting the debt to GDP analysis within the current rating category limits is the expectation that it should remain below 70% by the end of 2023-24. Additionally, strong rebound in tourism, as well as the continuous investment flows, are expected to support balance of payments health. However, the downside risks to the outlook include high energy prices, which can negatively impact fuel excise revenue, and a rising level of criminality, which can dampen St. Lucia's tourism attractiveness, increases business costs, and reduce the everyday welfare of citizens. The factors supporting the ratings are rating drivers, key strengths, monetary and exchange rate stability underpinned by membership in the quasi-currency board arrangements. Key risk, Fiscal performance can be erratic in the current high inflationary environment because while debt to GDP benefits from high nominal GDP impacts, fiscal spending can balloon with large social transfers and reduce fuel excise receipts. Sound financial sector despite COVID-19 challenges. Debt to GDP, key risk. Debt to GDP is projected to remain above the target of 60% over the medium term, requiring a twin strategy of fiscal consolidation and GDP growth to accelerate decline below the target. Key strengths. Economic activity is wider than most sub-regional peers. Although dependent on buoyancy in tourism, however, consistent but low growth in GDP is expected in the coming years. Rising and persistent crime can derail risk, can derail political focus, and can be disruptive to fiscal and investment planning. Economic income and economic structure, BBB plus, adequate. St. Lucia's nominal GDP remains the largest in the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States sub-region at US $2.3 billion in 2022. The economic base continues to be among the most diversified in the OECS. The three largest components of real GDP for 2022 were accommodation and food services 18.2%, real estate activities 10.7%, and wholesale and retail trade 10.6%. However, while this diversity exists as per industry classifications, tourism-related activities remain the lead driver of economic activity. Additionally, tourism continues to employ a significant share of the labor force. Therefore, factors which affect tourism can have large ripple effects throughout much of the economy. Real GDP improved by 18.1% in 2022 when compared to the prior year's improvement of 12.2%. Improved GDP performance in 2022 was primarily due to strong activity in the tourism sector. Tourism gained from the complete relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions on travel, which allowed capitalization of global pent-up travel demand. GDP additionally benefited from spillover effects of other sectors. Most economic activity categories improved in 2022. The most notable expansions were in accommodation and food services, 58.5%, wholesale and retail transport trade up by 23.7%, and transport and storage up by 19.3%. There were also favorable outturns for manufacturing, up by 11.4%, and agriculture, livestock, and forestry up by 9.8%. However, construction fell 12.6%, and financial services output was slightly lower by 0.9%. The tourism industry grew during the year as a result of continued recovery in stayover arrivals. Likewise, there was an improvement in cruise arrivals. Stayover arrivals rose year on year as a result of continued economic recovery in source markets and a full rollback of travel restrictions. The U.S. market grew by 38% in 2022 and was higher than the 2019 level by 9.6%. The UK market rose by 146.3%, but remained marginally below the 2019 levels. Both Canada and the Caribbean materially improved by 220% and 455% respectively. However, there were 48.8% and 63% below 2019 levels. Canada is a seasonal market and so more acutely affected by the season's weather and economic and flight availability factors, while the Caribbean suffers from lack of air access. Overall strong growth in stayover arrivals was due to increased U.S. airlift in 2022. Hotel occupancy rose to 70.4% in 2022 from 48.8% in the prior year. Cruise arrivals increased by 385.2% in 2022, which was approximately 43% 0.9% of 2019 levels. Favorable cruise itineraries contributed. There was a 490.8% rise in yacht arrivals. The wholesale and retail trade and transport and storage sectors grew by 23.7% and 19.3% respectively, arising out of the higher visitor arrivals. Though the manufacturing sector increased by 11.4% on account of higher demand from hotels, and in the export market, the industry was faced with challenges such as high cost of imported inputs and electricity and fuel. Agriculture rose by 9.8% in 2022, notwithstanding being negatively impacted by supply chain issues. Banana output rebounded, increasing by 11.3%. There was growth in domestic and regional tourism demand despite a decline in the UK banana markets. The UK market challenge was due to concerns about food quality and rising shipping costs, and as a result, exports to this market were suspended. The construction industry declined by 12.6% due to reduced activity in both public and private building. Public sector expenditure declined by 33.2% as major projects were completed in 2021 as well as in the first half of 2022, coupled with delay in the implementation of the Millennium Highway and West Coast rehabilitation. The sector's activity included the Iwanora International Airport Development Project, which is the largest public sector development, the completion of the road improvement and maintenance program, the reconstruction of the cul-de-sac bridge, school improvement works on the Equip, the constituency development program, and the Viewfort water supply. Private sector construction activity included work on the golf course at Cabot, St. Lucia Resort, the Dreams and Zortry Hotel in Miku, the Orange Grove Plaza, villa expansions at the Sandals Halcyon Beach Resort, and renovations at the Windjammer Landing and Beach Resorts. The labor market improved in 2022 as a result of the continued recovery in economic activity. The unemployment rate was 16.5%, which was the lowest in several recent years. Youth unemployment was particularly acute in prior years. While it still remains high, the government of St. Lucia has created a youth economy agency to encourage entrepreneurship and create opportunities for growing GDP and exports. Additionally, the expansion of the business process outsourcing industry creates additional employment opportunities. The offshore medical schools industry also can reduce unemployment through direct operational activities and construction of physical infrastructure. The government of St. Lucia intends to grow the edu business industry. Improvements in the ease of doing business have been forthcoming through financial structural reforms, such as credit report legislation, foreclosure legislation, bankruptcy and insolvency legislation, and secured transactions collateral registry. Mr. Speaker, as I said, I will make this entire document of the House. So allow me to continue to read, Mr. Speaker. Carrie Chris believes that the economy of St. Lucia will continue its resurgence in 2023. Supported again by robust output from the tourism sector. Arrivals are projected to reach 92% and 96% of 2019 levels in 2023 and 2024 respectively. There is intended harmonizing of tourism incentives into a single tourism development bill. Carrie Chris believes that this is a prudent initiative to consolidate and deepen tourism gains. Notwithstanding slow implementation, especially in public construction projects, an upturn in the construction sector is expected. New works under the HIRDP are projected to significantly fuel activity. Real GDP is projected to grow by 4.8% in 2023. However, downside risks to growth are significant and include the emergence of dangerous COVID-19 variants, rising levels of criminality, tropical storms, hurricane impacts, inflation and recessionary conditions, dampening tourism sector markets, demand for travel, and slower growth in partner countries. Based on the improvements in real GDP over the last 2 years, Governor St. Lucia's output performance is trending towards achievement of the GDP rating sensitivity factor. CARICRIS may update its outlooks or ratings in future review periods if progress persists. Mr. Speaker, then, as I said, the entire report will be made available for those who can read to read. Further, Mr. Speaker, it shows, Mr. Speaker, that the lies and the misinformation that is peddled by people who try to create the impression that the economy is a mess, Mr. Speaker. CARICRIS has shown this is completely different, and I'm not going to hide any part of it. The entire document is available for everyone to see, Mr. Speaker. So I hope, Mr. Speaker, that the public of St. Lucia understands that what passes in St. Lucia for opposition is slander, maliciousness, envy, and chagrin pouvoir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Dennery North.
Statement.
Whilst we await the member for Dennery North, I did have an omission. I forgot to introduce our guests from the University of Guyana International Relations Division. So I ask members to assist me in welcoming our guests from the University of Guyana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during the course of this year, the Department of Education has had to bid farewell to quite a few school administrators, teachers, and top-level officers who served our country well for decades. They worked hard to operationalize the vision of successive administrations. They contributed significantly to the development of people and country, and the left is indeed indelible. Within the Department of Education, 3 of our top-level managers proceeded on retirement. The commitment and dedication of Mr. Dawson Ragnanan, Dr. Claudia Louis, and Mrs. Beverly Francis contributed to making our system one which was more robust and more inclusive. At the school level, the exemplary leadership of principals such as Mr. Fenilor, Mr. Thomas, Mr. Louisi, Mrs. King, Mrs. Johnny, Mrs. Charles, Mrs. Sabina Allen, and Mrs. Newton should be emulated. I can only ask that our aspiring principals follow in their footsteps as they continue to improve the work that these principals would have started. Some teachers will also be missed, Mr. Speaker. The care they showed, or showered rather, on their students did not go unnoticed. Our system will miss the perseverance and enthusiasm of teachers such as Clara Saint-Hilaire of the Olio Combined School, Mary Plant of Morgouge, Portia Edmond of Denier Riviere, and Frances Pamphile of the Miku Primary School. And while these individuals have all proceeded on retirement, I know that they are still willing to contribute to the enhancement of our education system. I wish them all the best, knowing that they will at some point be called upon to act as to principals and teachers in our education system. There is still a major role for our retirees, and the Department of Education will tap into their expertise and resources to help us bolster our education system even further. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Cabinet of Ministers and by extension the government and people of St. Lucia, I wish the retirees all the best in their future endeavors.
Papers to be laid Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Economic Development, the Youth Economy, Justice and National Security.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Citing instrument number 128 of 2023, Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Bail Rules. Citing instrument number 130 of 2023, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, number 15 order. Citing instrument number 131 of 2023, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital and current expenditure to enhance the resilience of the St. Lucia Fire Service. Citing instrument number 132 of 2023, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital and current expenditure to support the Youth Economy Project. Citing instrument number 133 of 2023, Public Procurement Regulations. Citing instrument number 134 of 2023, Legal Profession Eligibility, Destiny Denisha Pascal Order. Citing instrument number 138 of 2023, Legal Profession Eligibility, Amica Branch Order. Citing instrument number 147 of 2023, Security Interest in Movable Property Act, Commencement Order. Citing instrument number 149 of 2023, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, number 16 order. Citing instrument number 140 of 2023, Public Debt Management Act Commencement Order. Citing instrument number 141 of 2023, Legal Profession Eligibility, Keisha Andine Chase Order.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Tourism, Investment, Creative Industries, Culture and Information.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument number 125 of 2023, Invest St. Lucia, Bruceville, Vieux-Fort West in order. Statutory Instrument number 126 of 2023, Tourism Incentives, Spinakers, St. Lucia Limited order. Statutory Instrument number 142 of 2023, Tourism Incentives, the St. Lucian Hub order. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to lay a paper in the name of the Minister for the Public Service. Statutory Instrument number 127 of 2023, Firearms, Certification of Ballistic Expert, notice.
Minister for Commerce, Manufacturing, Business Development, Cooperatives and Consumer Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers appearing in my name. Statutory Instrument number 129 of 2023, Price Control Amendment number 14 order. Statutory Instrument number 135 of 2023, Price Control Amendment number 15 order. And Statutory Instrument number 138 of 2023, Price Control Amendment number 16 order.
Motions, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Economic Development, Youth Economy, Justice and National Security.
Whereas under Section 1091 of the Value Added Tax Act Cap 15.42, the Act, it is provided that the Minister of Finance may, by order published in the Gazette, amend the schedules in the Act. And whereas it is further provided under Section 1092 of the Act that an order made pursuant to Section 1091 of the Act is subject to an affirmative resolution of Parliament, except where the amendment is to customs tariff headings only. And whereas the Minister of Finance seeks approval of the draft Value Added Tax Amendment Schedule 3, number 3 order, to amend Schedule 3 of the Act by an affirmative resolution in Parliament, to exempt imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period commencing from the 1st day of November 2023 and terminating on the 29th day of February 2024. B. Exempt imports of toys, food supplies, and care packages by a member of the House of Assembly for the benefit of children, the vulnerable and needy persons in the constituency of the member of the House of Assembly for the period commencing 1st day of November 2020. Food supplies and care packages by a member of the House of Assembly for the benefit of children, the vulnerable and the needy in the constituency of the member of the House of Assembly for the period commencing from the 1st of November 2023 and terminating on the 41st day of January 2024. Mr. Speaker, this is a motion, Mr. Speaker, to exempt items in barrels imported between the months of November and I think February, Mr. Speaker, in Point St. Lucia, to exempt it from value-added tax, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, we must pay tribute, Mr. Speaker, to the member, the former Prime Minister, the member from Beaufort South, who started that barrel import for St. Lucians way back in 1998, Mr. Speaker. And we are continuing, Mr. Speaker, continuing that tradition in exempting these barrels from the items in these barrels from VAT, Mr. Speaker. The upper limit on the value per barrel is 3,000 EC, Mr. Speaker, and the qualifying items must be for personal use and not commercial use, and electronics are excluded. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell the people of St. Lucia that this barrel concession is a privilege that they should not abuse, Mr. Speaker. And the customs and law enforcement have been mandated to pay strict attention to what is included in these barrels. These barrels will not be used for illegal activity. They will not be used, Mr. Speaker, as a cover-up for illegality, Mr. Speaker. So I want to tell the people of St. Lucia that law enforcement is going to be very, very strict, because we cannot use these barrels as an excuse to import firearms or other illegal items, Mr. Speaker. Further, Mr. Speaker, you notice that this incentive will also be enjoyed by parliamentarians, Mr. Speaker. And look at the difference in the way we do our things and the way they do our things. They do their things. We come to the parliament in the open, and we say all parliamentarians, regardless of your political color, regardless of where you represent, or regardless of what party you represent, Mr. Speaker, we are in the open, and we say everyone, Mr. Speaker. When they did it the last time, we had to literally squeeze it out of them. We had to remove as if we were pulling teeth, Mr. Speaker, for them to allow us to do the same thing when they were doing it privately on their own account, Mr. Speaker. That's the difference. That's the difference between them and us. That's the difference, Mr. Speaker. We are transparent and we are open, Mr. Speaker. That's the difference. And we accept the will of the people of this country. In 2016, the people in 2016, the people of this country went to the polls and they elected the opposition. 6 of us sat on this side of the parliament. They abused us. They gave us no incentives. They took their CDP funds and they shared it among themselves. They gave us nothing. They did us that for 5 years. 6 years, nearly 6 years, Mr. Speaker. We sat and we took it. We never went on the outside to spread the calumny and the lies that they are spreading on that side, Mr. Speaker. If you listen to the opposition, you think we live in 2 different St. Lucias. You think there are 2 different St. Lucia. A St. Lucia that is something in their own imagination and the reality that exists in St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. The opposition, there are people who are saying to their relatives in St. Lucia, they will not send barrels for them because the cost of goods in these places is too high. After they pay the shipping, they will not be able to make any gains. They prefer to send the money for them in St. Lucia so they can buy the stuff in St. Lucia. But if you listen to them, Mr. Speaker, you will believe that I am the Prime Minister of the world. You'll believe the Prime Minister of the world. You'll believe I'm the one who caused the Ukrainians and the Russians to fight. I'm the one now who caused the Palestinians and the Israelis to be in problems. And I'm the one who caused the Panama Canal to be suffering from a drought that will affect supply chain issues. That's what they say. That's what they tell me, Mr. Speaker. All because they don't have the patience to lose the next 2 seats that they have in the next election. They do not have the patience to wait to lose the 2 seats they have in there. So, if they had that patience, they would sit, they'd represent the constituencies, take the CDP money that we give them, do something in the constituencies, and stop this calumny and this recklessness and these lies that they peddle. And they do not come inside and argue, Mr. Speaker. What they do, they rush out, run outside. Children running, as I said, Daddy, they took my toys. Running outside. They run outside, Mr. Speaker, run to the press, run to their favorite media, and spew lies. That's what they do. They don't come and sit down and argue the facts, put pen to paper, show documents, and deal with the issues of the country. No. Go outside, go in safe environments and lie. Go in safe environments and spread calumny. Go in safe environments and say that are completely untrue. Go in safe environments, Mr. Speaker, and say and make pledges that they don't believe. But to come in this parliament, where the people send them, instead of coming here and do what they have to do, Mr. Speaker, they go outside and in their shame and their ruthlessness, they refuse to speak the truth, Mr. Speaker. But as I said, they want elections before independence next year. But why is the opposition so much in a hurry to lose their 2 seats? Why are they so much in a hurry? Mr. Speaker, the member for Mekong North, in a few minutes, will support a motion that will improve the water supply in Passion. He also, next month, will begin work on the Miku jetty. He also, next year, will deal with the Miku preschool, where they're publishing. But you know, Mr. Speaker, I came, one day I said that we're going to win 2 Denry seats. Dusbal, so said, so done. But you know, Mr. Speaker, for the very fact that they do not respect the will of the people, the fact that they do not respect the will of the people, and they don't understand that the majority fell from 1,000 to 400. Next election, we're going to be taking the 400 votes. So, when we come to this honorable house, next election, Mr. Speaker, they will have to be on the outside. And you know, sometimes I laugh because they seem to forget who calls elections. They've forgotten that. You see, they seem to forget who will call elections. They forget. But Mr. Speaker, we have allowed them all the latitude. Talk, quarrel, curse people, lie. We all the rope you want. Threaten people. Do all kind of things. Call on people to attack people's families. Mr. Speaker, do you know, Mr. Speaker, I do not listen to these things that come from certain sections of these so-called tunnel meetings. But one day, somebody from abroad called me. And the sad thing is the person was a friend of the people who were spewing the rubbish. And he said to me, what has politics in St. Lucia turned on? Where are we? What kind of politics are playing in this country? That's right. Where is this country, Mr. Speaker? Where is this country? A prime minister comes to visit and to speak to a convention, Mr. Speaker. That's not the first thing that's happened. Several prime ministers. The Prime Minister of Grenada was here speaking on the platform of the United Workers' Party. The Prime Minister of St. Kitts was here speaking on the platform of the United Workers' Party. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent, one day he came to make peace, but he also came to speak on the platform of the United Workers' Party. We listened. They said all kinds of things. A prime minister comes the one from Belize is not a prime minister. The one from Belize is not a prime minister. He's something else. The one from Belize. So the one from Belize came, Mr. Speaker, and he went to Vieux-Fort. And you know the hypocrisy in these guys. The hypocrisy, the bluff. The one from Belize went to Vieux-Fort. That is the same man who spoke about horse racing in Vieux-Fort. The same man who stopped the people's horse racing. The same man who wanted to change the name of the people's country or the people's town from Vieux-Fort to Pearl of the Caribbean. The same man who gave 1,000 acres of land, some of it at 99 cents per square foot. 1,000 acres of land. 1,000 acres. That's the same man who did that. In the parliament.
Member for Microsoft, you have a point of order?
The same man in the parliament.
On the point of order,
who spent
member for Castries East, what is the point of order?
The member's misleading the House.
How is he misleading the House?
Because he's saying that there was a lease of 1,000 acres, or he's giving the impression that there was 1,000.
No, I never said that.
The fact
there was a qualifying word, most of which.
But it's not even most of which. So the fact is
but that's subjective, isn't it?
190. How could 190 acres be most of 1,000? So that's not impossible. So there was no, not even close to 1,000 acres.
Member for Castries East, please proceed.
So the fact is that if we're going to,
I have a member for Microsoft.
To sit down.
I have asked the member for Castries East to proceed.
The same man. The same man who 1,000 acres of land in Vieux-Fort. Most of it for 99 cents per square foot. The same man.
Speaker, on the point of order again.
The same man, Mr. Speaker, wants to say.
Member for Miku South.
The same man.
I have ruled. The member for Castries will proceed.
So he's correct.
I have ruled.
Question your math, Mr. Speaker.
The same man who put 1,000 acres of land in Vieux-Fort South, who leased 1,000 acres of land, most of it for 99 cents a square foot. The same man.
Member for Miku South. Member for Castries.
Acres, Mr. Speaker.
Member for
That's a
Castries East,
grossly
yes, hold on.
inaccurate statement, Mr. Speaker, and I cannot sit in the House, Mr. Speaker, and allow that statement to be made because it is a lie. And the member knows that, Mr. Speaker. So I'm asking you.
Which one? Stranger to the truth. Dead with truth. The same man who's leased 1,000 acres of land, most of it at 99 cents a square foot, wants to call a solution.
Mr. Speaker,
who
again,
bought a few
Mr.
acres,
Speaker, I have to stand on a
half
point of
acre
order.
of land, Mr. Speaker. The same man wants to call
misleading
it
the House.
a non-entity. Wants to
It
call
was not most
Member
of the land.
Member for
was
Castries.
non-entity. You know why he's the
Qualifying the land,
because
Mr. Speaker,
he's a
is
product of
1,000.
Canada. That's his problem.
Member for
The
Castries.
same man who is a product of Canada.
Member for
who believes-
Castries East, just hold on. Member, I have ruled on 3 occasions. I will not allow you to raise this issue again.
But I have to, Mr. Speaker.
No, you will not have to.
The members
You will
misleading
take
the
your
House,
seat,
and I'm
member.
sorry that he's misled you as well. But
Member-
the reality is, Mr. Speaker, that it's not as much as 500 acres.
Member for Miku South, please take your seat.
Mr. Speaker,
Member for Miku
I'm
South,
asking Mr. Speaker,
please
true,
take
is
your
it true?
seat.
Does the member prove that there was more than 500 acres that was leased?
Member, I'm not going to ask you to take your seat again.
But I'm asking you, Mr. Speaker.
No, I'm not going to ask you
Dr.
again.
Clarify.
Do
How
not
can you
debate
allow-
with
how
the
can you
presiding
allow
officer.
a member of the House to mislead the House? How can you do
Are
that?
you going to take your seat?
No, Mr. Speaker.
Sergeant, are you going to take your seat?
I'm not taking my seat until you can give me a satisfactory answer, Mr.
Member, I have
Cannot
made
allow
a
member
ruling.
to come to this House and
Please
mislead the House
take
so blatantly.
your seat.
It's a lie, Mr. Speaker. And I'm asking you to stand up.
Members of GIS, under the standing orders, I do have the authority to ask you to turn off your cameras while I'm about to do what I have to do. Please take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition does not want to come in this honorable house and listen to argument and listen to fact and defend himself. What he wants to do is go in a safe environment, and say whatever he wants, when nobody will challenge him. But when you come inside here, whilst you're here, you're going to be challenged on the truth. And nothing you can do about it. Nothing. You have to sit there and listen. Mr. Speaker, you see, Mr. Speaker, they believe, Mr. Speaker, because they are products of Canada, they can come to this honorable house, and because they believe that they are products of Canada, Mr. Speaker, they can come to this honorable house or go into this country and completely mislead the public about what the Prime Minister of Grenada said. The Prime Minister of Grenada never said to be Prime Minister Lucia, he must be born in St. Lucia. He never said so. He never said so. And the record will show that he never said so. But you know, these old Nazi tactics, repeat the same thing all the time. Repeat it, and people will believe it, Mr. Speaker. They tried that for 5 years. Between 2016 and 2021, we beat them in the elections. You know what they said? They said a 15-2 majority is no majority. You ever heard that? We beat you 15-2. You say you have no majority? But you know what we'll do? We'll take these two. So, Mr. Speaker, if they believe that they can threaten us, if they believe they can run us out, if they believe that we are weak and because we are focused on running the country, if they believe that they can go out there and say whatever they want, Mr. Speaker, talking about people's body parts. You want to believe that? You want to believe that? In a public meeting about people's body parts, calling people dogs, calling people mongrels. You want to believe that? But you know, that's his habit. Because he's the same man who said, let the barking dogs bark. So that's his habit of calling people dogs. That's it, let the jackasses bray. That's the same man. But you know, what will happen to him? What will happen to him is history will come back to haunt him. Because technology has made it possible for everything I see, And every day everybody's honorable house says to be replayed. And we just begin to replay what has been said. We just begin to replay it. Because, Mr. Speaker, we can't allow it to happen because young people are listening, Mr. Speaker. Young people listen to these lies. We don't tell Mr. Speaker. We decided, and tomorrow the Prime Minister of Britain, and I'm talking about VAT and items, consumer items, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister of Britain tomorrow will go to Parliament to have a policy on feminine products. Tomorrow, Prime Minister of Britain, we, in his honorable house, pass legislation to remove VAT on feminine products. They made a joke out of it. They had a demonstration, have people with pampers. I mean, what kind of respect you have for the elderly of this country? You have people with pampers in a demonstration because the government removed VAT on feminine products. They know nothing about period poverty. And when you talk to them about that, they draw them and say, oh, I can identify you, said Lucia. Hypocrites. You see, Mr. Speaker, so they suddenly they're no longer products of Canada. Suddenly they no longer want us to follow Norway, but they can identify you, said Lucia, Mr. Speaker. And there are some hypocrites in this society. When you use some words, they pretend as if these words, they pretend as if these words are something that you mustn't say. You mustn't say these words, Mr. Speaker, because of the hypocrisy. They accuse us, Mr. Speaker, of speaking about racism, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on a platform in Choiseul, a member of the United Workers' Party said in public, and you know, I want to open it up, because if they believe they'll make us say some words and first run behind it, boy, that's racism. I'll open it up. Went on a platform in Choiseul, and he said, he will not vote for a black man as Prime Minister. He will vote for a white man. No member of the United Workers' Party ever said he should not say that. Never corrected him. The member for Beaufort South, he had to go on the television and the radio and say that he was not what they were saying. He was not what they were saying he is, Mr. Speaker. They never corrected him. Mr. Speaker. But suddenly, if you speak about your identity, if you speak about you are proud to be, to be proud of what you are, Mr. Speaker, they call about racism, Mr. Speaker, to make people run and hide behind these emotional words, Mr. Speaker. But we are not going to hide behind it. We are proud, Mr. Speaker, to say where we came from, where we are now. We're very proud. We are very proud, Mr. Speaker. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I'll put the public of St. Lucia notice. We are now going to call them out for their lies and call them out for their deception. That is starting now. We're not going to allow people to go on the radio, going and soil the names of men and women in this country and lie and say all kinds that never happened, blame us for things we have absolutely no control over, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking about VAT again. These items, Mr. Speaker, they will not attract the 2.5% levy. They will attract it. The items in the barrels will not attract the 2.5% levy. But if you hear them, Mr. Speaker, 2.5% levy, but that's the same man. And the cabinet conclusion will show who had a cabinet meeting, and in that cabinet conclusion he said they have to consider putting a health and security levy. And that's the same man who was in the government, and the member for Castries North.
Member for Castries East. Member for Mico
Member is
South.
misleading the House. If there is any cabinet conclusion that says that, Mr. Speaker, I think that he ought to make it a document to the House, Mr. Speaker.
But you can bring the cabinet conclusion at a subsequent meeting.
How?
Your word today that he is misleading because he has to bring it.
Mr. Speaker,
is
all
not
I
enough.
know is that we spoke about a health insurance program, but we've never spoken about a health and security levy. That's his imagination. That's his baby. That's the bucket that he has to carry, not me.
Mr. Speaker, he was in the government when they came here and they passed a security tax. They were in the government, you know. And you know, Mr. Speaker, that hypocrisy. He was in the government when they came and they passed a security tax. And the member for Castries North has admitted that he was Prime Minister when they passed a security tax. He admitted that they were Prime Minister. He said they passed it at the right time because it was necessary at the time, Mr. Speaker. But if you hear him talk about health and security levy, you'll think that we've done something that is out of this world. There is something, we have destroyed the economy. We've destroyed everything, Mr. Speaker. But he cannot tell us. He spoke about health insurance. There is not one document I have seen that speaks about anything about health insurance in the Bureau of St. Lucia. That's what I have seen.
Mr. Speaker, again, the member is misleading the House.
Member for Castries East, you just take your seat, yes?
There has been press conferences, there's document, there were consultants hired by the World Bank specifically to do with healthcare insurance. There were several meetings throughout this length and breadth of society. We spoke about it in every single document. So again, the member is misleading the House in suggesting that there was never any discussions.
Mr. Speaker, I never said there was a discussion.
Member for
Mr. Speaker.
Member for Castries East. Member for Mico South. If you are going to rise on points of order, you respond to what was said. The member for Castries East said he has never seen. He never spoke about press conferences or anything. Said he has never seen. Are you going to tell him what he has seen?
Thank you. No, Mr. Speaker, but I would make the point that as Prime Minister, if he's not seen it, then I'm even more worried than I am now.
But that's not a point of order. That's not a point of order.
Well, that's the point I have to say, Mr. Speaker.
That's not a point of order.
If he said that there is a program in which we spend money,
Member
and there's
from Mico
documentation
South.
for it, Mr. Speaker,
That's
and
not-
therefore then I am more worried because it means that he's misleading the whole country. And
Member-
therefore he's mismanaging the country. What
Member-
else do I mean, for
Member
everything
from
he
Mico
says, I
South.
don't know.
Member from Mico South, it would appear that one of your purposes here today is to cause me to do something. That won't happen. But member, if you're going to rise, I've allowed you to rise on 6 occasions. If you're going to rise on a point of order, it ought to be a point of order. If the member for Castries East says he has not seen, I don't know what point of order you can rise on to tell him what he has seen. Please proceed, member for Castries East.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have not seen any document in the office. I have not seen that says anything about health insurance. I have not seen it. Mr. Speaker, it's the same way they went around and they abused reporters. Tell them, I'm ashamed of you. A reporter asked me whether I have read. I said, that's not his business. What I read is my business. How are you going to ask me what I read? I said to him, that's not your business, because what I read is what I read. What's wrong with that? I didn't say, I didn't insult him. I didn't tell him I was ashamed of him. I didn't walk out on him. I didn't call him a criminal. I didn't call him a jailbird. All I said was, that is not your business what I've read. That's all I said. And anybody who asks me what's my business, I tell them that's not your business. So, Mr. Speaker, we are again trying to continuing to give relief to the people of this country. And that is why, as I said previously, there is no health and security levy on the items in this barrel, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, as I end, because today is a very long day. We have a long day today, Mr. Speaker. Because today we will begin the government's response. Because they believe that we've been sleeping. But whilst we've been focused on managing the economy, as the Carrie Chris report says, we are politicians. And we shall respond. So, I'm putting them on notice. Anytime they lie, anytime they deny that they said they were products of Canada, anytime they deny that they were in government. You see, Mr. Speaker, they behave as if they were not in government. They were never in government. You just start to cry. They forget these things. All of these things will come back. So I'm putting them on notice that we are now going to respond. We are going to tell the public about what this government is doing, because the public is feeling it. The public is seeing how this country is progressing. Mr. Speaker, next year, Mr. Speaker, I heard one of them say, I said that next year is the year of infrastructure. So what happened to this year? Mr. Speaker, no wonder these guys lost elections, you know. No wonder they lost elections. You know, there are guys who are failures. People vote them out of government. Now they're out of government. But Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to say I've won 6 elections. 6. And you can do whatever you want. The fact is, you must put it in your pipe and you must smoke it. I've won 6 elections. You lost one. I won't tell you how you got the other one that you won. You lost one. I won't tell you how you said that, not me. I won't tell you. I lost one and I won 6. I won 6, you understand? And that's what you can't take. You have to take it all the time, Mr. Speaker, because you see, your hatred and your envy will get you nowhere. And I don't love you. I don't love you. I don't love you. Look at me. I don't love you. Your hatred and your envy will get you nowhere. And I'm saying to you that when you continue like that, in the next election, we might leave Bradley, but not you. Thank you very much.
The member from Mico South.
Mr. Speaker, we're debating a motion about barrels, an annual thing that we do, successive governments have done. And I see that the subject matter on this particular bill has been broadened. So,
Member, my apologies, I did not put the motion to the House. So may I do that now?
Sure.
Be it resolved that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 3, Number 3 order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to A, exempt imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period commencing from the 1st day of November 2023 and terminating on the 29th day of February 2024. B, exempt imports of toys, food supplies, and care packages by a member of the House of Assembly for the benefit of children, the vulnerable and needy persons in the constituency of the member of the House of Assembly for the period commencing from the 1st day of November 2023 and terminating on the 41st day of January 2024. Please proceed, member from Mico South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I see that the Prime Minister has given a very broad spectrum of this barrel concession. And maybe deep down inside, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister himself would recognize how the state of the economy is impacting the people of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. He went to great lengths, Mr. Speaker, to explain to all of us that he is not going to include the 2.5% levy on the barrels. But that is his standard policy. Anything that does not have that, the 2.5% does not apply. So there's nothing new here, Mr. Speaker. He hasn't done any special favor for anybody. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected the special favor that the Prime Minister, the member from Castries East, would have spoken about is that given how people are suffering in this country right now, that he would have extended the barrel concession all the way until June of next year. And certainly, the members of the opposite side here would support any amendment to this particular motion that would allow the barrel concession to go to June. Because the fact is, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister, when he was introducing the 2.5% levy, you were here, Mr. Speaker, repeatedly said that it was not on food. And the intention was that the 2.5% levy would not have an impact on food. He repeated it every single time, Mr. Speaker. Every time. In fact, when he left the House, every single press conference he did, he said, I want to remind everybody, in case you mislead me, you misinterpret what I'm saying, the 2.5% levy is not on food and will not impact the price of food. Well, Mr. Speaker, we see that the price of food has gone up because the policy of the 2.5% at this particular time, Mr. Speaker, is flawed. Because there's no way to have introduced this on goods and services, Mr. Speaker, and it would not have had an impact on food. It's raised the cost of doing business for every for every business in this country, and is now having a significant, dramatic effect on the cash flow. People don't have money, Mr. Speaker. They're paying too much in taxes. And so therefore I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, if in fact now the Prime Minister, only after 2 months of introducing it from services, but has had the benefit of seeing it on goods for a longer period of time, and recognizing that the price of food has gone up, would he give some relief to the people of St. Lucia, at minimum, to extend the barrel concession all the way till June? And if not, suspend the tax and try again, because it's not achieving what he wants in creating incremental revenue for the government and not impacting the poorest of the poor in this country. The poorest of the poor that he has so adequately identified. Don't come here and tell me or tell us or try to convince us that you are caring government in a time when you have imported inflation taking place, and you contribute and you allow that to multiply by allowing the price of gas to go up. The price of gas in the country, internationally, it's $75 a barrel. We're still selling gas at $16 a gallon and plus. We're still selling cooking gas for almost $40 for a 22-cylinder. That is a wickedness in this country. Where's the care? Where's the care and the compassion for the people that you say, the poorest of poor that you keep identifying? Where is that compassion? You want to come to this House, Mr. Speaker, and speak about politics and about me, and I'm the target? I want to reiterate, when we lost the election, I took responsibility for my party. I congratulated the government. Something that was never afforded me when I became Prime Minister. But that's fine. That's okay. And I sat on my side here, and at no time I've had any animosity or any regret, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, you see where we're going? The priority in today's House, at a time when unemployment is increasing, when we have deals that are being made, secret deals that are being made, in which we're not being told what's being done, where the patrimony of this country is being destroyed, Mr. Speaker. And this government wants to come now and talk about when there are allegations, they're going to stand up for those allegations? Really? That's what the government wants to convince people? I don't even have to get into the comments by the government, by the Prime Minister of Grenada. It's not for me. The public has interpreted it. They'll all come here and want to say that we're influencing that opinion. It speaks for itself what he said. It speaks for itself as what he intended it to mean. And it speaks to itself in terms of what the MP from Castries Central said. So is he denying that the member from Castries Central said that he wants to amend the Constitution, given his own way, to allow persons who are not born in St. Lucia? Go and try it. Go and try it. Go and see what the people of St. Lucia have to say about you. And even the CCJ is a great example. You all have so much faith in the people of St. Lucia that you all will go to the CCJ and not have a referendum? That's the confidence that you have in the people of St. Lucia? You said the people of St. Lucia are on your side and they understand the issues. How many St. Lucians really understood what you've done and what we've exchanged it for? So, Mr. Speaker, I want to come back to the tax. The fact is that this economy is reeling under the mismanagement of this government. The Carey-Chris report, I'm so happy you read it, because the Carey-Chris report confirms all the lies that y'all said when y'all were in opposition, that the country was being mismanaged and there was no money. The fact is, when you came in, the economy that same year grew 12.5%. And on the growth of the decisions that we made when we were in the government, it grew another 18.5%. And that's why I was looking over at the Minister of Tourism and the member from Castries South, whether in fact he has informed his Prime Minister and his Minister of Finance as to what the state of tourism is today. So the Carey-Chris report says the assumption is, Mr. Speaker, that the economy is going to continue growing and that the fundamental biggest contributor is tourism. And it's the expectation that tourism is going to get back to 92% of where it was in 2019. How? Since June, Mr. Speaker, the tourism numbers have declined significantly. In fact, the greatest contributor, which is the US market, was down 36% in August. And the expectation is that the number of arrivals are going to continue to decline all the way until November. Maybe in November we might see some reprieve. And the reality is the lessons that he should have learned this summer, he has not. And therefore, the same inadequacies we have with airlift this summer, we're going to have it again next summer. But guess what? FCCA gave a report, Mr. Speaker, that said the cruise industry is back in the Caribbean stronger than it was before 2019. We've not seen that. We haven't even come close to the 2019 numbers, Mr. Speaker. Not even close. Not even close. We're talking about 2023. We're talking about 2023 because the Carey-Chris report was the evaluation of the economy in 2022. We're now in 2023. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I am again concerned, and all St. Lucians should be concerned, that a Prime Minister would stand here, Mr. Speaker, refer to a report of last year to give us comfort for this year? Really? A government that does not even understand, Mr. Speaker, does not even begin to understand the impact of taxation on this economy. And when you talk about that you want to do things for the poorest of the poor, they're suffering. They don't have jobs. It's now costing them more money for bus fares, more money for bread, more money to get cooking gas than ever it has ever costed in this country. And the reality is, by you allowing your government to allow those things to go up, even when commodity prices come down, those prices will not come down. And you want to talk about that you're helping? How? And if you want to believe that 15-2, yes, it's a major victory in Parliament. But in popular vote, Mr. Speaker, okay, you should be keeping your eyes open, and particularly with the movement on the ground. And the reality is there will be a march on November 30th, Mr. Speaker. A march to protest the GPH deal. A march to protest the 2.5% tax. A march to protest the cost of bus fares in this country. A march to protest the condition of the roads in this country, because we have a lazy roller, not a heavy roller. That's what we have, Mr. Speaker. We're going to be having a march to protest against what is taking place with crime in this country. We're going to be have a march to talk about the corruption in this country and the continued implementation of fear in the community of this country. You have a minister of government that goes on a radio show, Mr. Speaker, and says he's getting information from the police, and the Prime Minister has not fired him yet. So how do we take those words that he said? Oh, if anybody points out any form of corruption in my government, I'm going to deal with it immediately. Well, Mr. Prime Minister, that is not legal. It's against the civil rights of people. How can you have a minister of government admitting publicly admitting that he's getting information from policemen to come after individuals? How? How can that happen, Mr. Speaker? How can that happen? And he says nothing. You have a GPH deal in which we're selling off the revenue of our ports for 40 years. You cannot explain what we're getting. And then you're turning around now and you're destroying SLASPA. You're the same government that wanted to privatize the airport. So you have an entity that is as successful as SLASPA, national pride, and a party that says that they are for the people, and you're going to take away all the jobs? Well, Mr. Speaker, I have to look at what the facts are. Are people leaving SLASPA? Are there senior executives leaving SLASPA? Are there persons who were in SLASPA and were negotiating the deal, and today they are with the same company they were negotiating with? Is it true that the chairman of Invest in Lucia, that his brother is the one who got the job? And the justification by the minister is what? He's qualified? Sorry?
Who got the deal for the government vehicle? Tell us now. Tell us now.
Mr. Speaker, if we're going to talk about government vehicles, I certainly would like to know. I saw that there was a cabinet approval for the purchase of a vehicle by CIP. I would like to know where that vehicle is. We're going to talk about government vehicles. Okay? That's what we're talking about. So all I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, the optics, I have no brother-in-law, let me put on record, I have no brother-in-law who owns any car company. None. Okay?
But
so all I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, the things that they want to ascribe...
Mikusof, yes, member for Castries South.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, I think it is really unacceptable that a member can tarnish the name of someone who is not in this House. It is one thing to say anything about any member sitting here, where we have an opportunity to stand up and defend ourselves. But to tarnish and send Lucian, who is a professional, who was given a job, and tarnish a brother who is a senior banking executive in this country, and suggest that there is something untold that happened between them in the safety of this honorable chamber, knowing that you cannot be sued for the things that you say inside there. And I think, Mr. Speaker, you should ask the honorable member to show some decency, some dignity, and some decorum and respect for this House. You could say it about any one of us. We can stand, we can answer you. But do not attack St. Lucians who are not present and cannot defend themselves because you have the safety of this House. It is what cowards do. Be a man and take on the men and women around this table where we can answer you. It is unacceptable, honorable member. And Mr. Speaker, he denied genuine complaint, but he'll get his answers in a while. But Mr. Speaker, I think you ought to tell him that this is really unacceptable in this honorable chamber.
Member for Castries South, I don't think the member from Mikusof has crossed the line in pointing out the fact that there is a familial relationship between two people and asking a question. I don't think he has crossed the line yet. Please proceed, member.
Mr. Speaker, I want to give the member from Castries South comfort that what I've just said, I also said in public. So, and I think I was even more specific in public than I was in the House. But Mr. Speaker, if in fact I am to genuinely believe that the member from Castries South is concerned, when the same member from Castries Central attacked the same managing director of the bank and said that the person was in a car accident and that he was drunk and that he did not call the police, where were the voices?
Member from Mikusof, you do have a motion before you to debate. I'm trying to make the nexus between what you just said there and the motion.
I was responding to the member of Castries South.
The only thing you ought to respond to is the motion before you.
Very well, Mr. Speaker, but I'm just saying we cannot have a double standard in our House. If we're going to want to make statements and say that they're coming from a place of integrity and morality, then let's be consistent with it. The fact is that a port was sold. The revenue stream for the port was assigned to a foreign company for 30 years with an extension for 40 years.
That means it's sold?
Of course, because the revenue is gone. And you know, and the member... And the members that are talking about, and again I want to reiterate to the member of Vieux-Fort South, when he came to this house and spoke about an account in Panama, you want to speak about...
Michael South, just hold on. Member of Castries South? Okay, he is withdrawn. Please proceed, he is withdrawn.
Mr. Speaker, again, here we go, You have a deal in which the revenue stream from the port, all of it, has been assigned to a foreign company. That means that you keep the land, but the land is of no use to you because all the revenue potential for the land has been given to a foreign company. A foreign company that does not even have the balance sheet that they can come and borrow the money here in St. Lucia. They have to come to a local bank. So the question begs, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you have allowed SLASPA to have borrowed the money if that's what you wanted to do? And keep control of your own revenue stream and pay them a management contract if they're so good. And give them a management contract where you can pay them for their costs and give them an incentive if they're able to improve. But no, the geniuses, y'all wanted to go, the same thing y'all wanted to do for the airport and privatize the airport. Y'all was in such a way to do that. You've come now and done it to our seaports. And in doing it, you are destroying SLASPA, a statutory agency that has been successful for over 40 years, employing and developing solutions. The same solutions that are now leaving SLASPA to go and work for the foreign entity. And now they can afford to pay them because you've given them a sweetheart deal. A deal that you've not even been able to explain to the public of St. Lucia. The question is, why? And I'm looking forward to seeing what the Bank of St. Lucia is going to use as collateral for the loan. Because I know that when we were doing the loan deal for HIA, we had to come to this house and do a bank guarantee. So if you've not sold the land, what equity are you going to give the bank? What is it in this deal? Right? So, Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy that the member from Castries East has spoken about the Carrie-Chris report. Carrie-Chris report is a very good evaluation as what has transpired. I'm proud that even during the COVID period that we did not see a decline or reduction in our credit rating. And I want to say that the credit rating has not changed, BBB minus. And it's not until this government is able to perform over the next 2 years, and I hope that they do, but certainly all the signs are, Mr. Speaker, we're not performing. Because if we're going to be depending on tourism to grow, it's not growing. If we're depending on agriculture, if we're depending on construction, where is it? This government is going in reverse gear. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I look over at St. Vincent. St. Vincent has managed to build a brand new airport. Not just a terminal, you know, Mr. Speaker. A whole runway, took down 2 hills and built an airport. They took the English money, the British money, Mr. Speaker, the same money that we're using for the Millennium Highway and the West Coast, that we can't seem to get off the ground. We have a bridge that's built, but we can't seem to get the roundabout done. If I was the Minister of Infrastructure, I actually would be embarrassed to show my face in public, Mr. Speaker. Okay? So the fact is that, you know, at the end of the day, the buck stops with the minister. If there's a problem, get rid of it and solve it because you are working for the people of St. Lucia. Don't come and give people excuses. I would be embarrassed to come in public if I was the Minister of Infrastructure. So all I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, all of these things are taking place and this government is not performing, and they want to know why people are upset. Not because of lies, it's because people are feeling it. People are feeling it in their pockets. I see the member from Vieux-Fort South. He said, I must provide proof, Mr. Speaker, that Vieux-Fort is not included in the deal. He's in government. He's in government. How come nobody from this government can say categorically that they're going to develop the South? It's in your manifesto. Who could not see the sense in building a port in Vieux-Fort to help the people in the South? Who could not see the sense in doing a home port to be able to get the airport tax? All these things need to be explained, Mr. Speaker. And the Carrie-Chris report shows the economy was well managed during COVID, that we gave you a foundation. You all said that there would be no money. You all have had more money than in any time in the history of St. Lucia. By 2022, we had generated more tax revenue than we had in 2019. More. Based on the fundamentals we put in place. At a time when we were saying open the doors, Labour said close the doors. And the moment they got in, state of emergency is gone, to hell with protecting the people of St. Lucia and their rights, and open up as quickly as possible. How many more people died? How many more people died? Over 800 people died during COVID. I'm proud of the fact that when we left office, it was 88. And that was 88 too many. Too many. Too many. 88 too many. Who said that? Go ahead. Horses before hospitals. Let me hear it. The same member who wanted to talk about horses. I said I'm proud of the fact we only had 88. And 88 was too many, in case you don't remember. 88 is too many. Now, if 88 is too many, how much is 500? How much is 500? Because in an hour, your policies, when we had COVID, we had nothing. We didn't even have ventilators. We had nothing. We had nothing. We had no ventilators. We had nothing. We didn't even know what we were dealing with. By the time you had Delta, you knew what the policies that would work, but you all ignored it. You ignored it, and you deliberately allowed people to be exposed in this country. Why? Why? And then now the economy is growing. You want to take credit? What did you all do? All the projects that the Minister from Finance has spoken about, every single one of them was started and done by United Workers' Party. Every single one. But they were in process, and you inherited it. The ones that you could stop, you stopped.
Like what?
Rodney Bay Road, HIA Airport, St. Jude's, okay? Roads in the south. Want me to keep going? All the things that you stopped. Right, Mr. Speaker?
Keep going.
This is a government that wants to continue to live in its own imagination, that it cares about the people. It doesn't care about the people. There's nothing in the policies of this government that show me you care. If you really cared and you want to turn, and you said today you want to start afresh, allow the concessions on the barrels to go to June. Allow it to go to June. Or, better yet, agree that your policies were misguided and the 2.5% tax, which was not supposed to impact the cost of food, and has, that you're going to rethink it. And you're going to figure out a better way. And again, Mr. Speaker, you come to the House, you want to fool the people. 2 years, $66 million, that's what you're looking at. You're going to put everybody through this kind of pain for $66 million? And you're boasting as to how well CIP is doing? Up to now, you all can't give a report how you spent the money in the economic fund. How? It's not even in the consolidated account. All the claims you made that we weren't providing the reports, all the reports are there. You said that Tara King received money. You've been in government for 2.5 years. Show the people where. Where? You have somewhere to go, Minister? Okay. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful that the Prime Minister broadened the scope of discussion so we can speak not just about the barrels, but about holistically his policies and strategies as it pertains specifically to helping the poorest of poor in this country. And I want to talk about, and I've spoken about, that your policies are not working. The things that impact the poorest of the poor, the price of bread, price of electricity, price of bus fares, and now the price of basic food commodities, everything has gone up, regardless of whether it is price protected or it has VAT on it, or none. Because the cost of operations of the grocery stores has gone up, and the profit margin has gone up. And therefore it's being passed on to those goods indirectly, not because of your tax directly, but indirectly because of the tax. And so I'm saying to the Prime Minister, if he has a heart, if we are to genuinely believe him that he cares about the poorest of the poor, you have somewhere to go? The church service is not until Saturday, huh? Okay? So, and what you're doing is not petty. Mr. Speaker, this is a government that's full of bluff. This is a government that continues to want to believe its own propaganda. The reality on the street, if he cares to listen, Mr. Speaker, is people are suffering in this country. And if you genuinely cared, you would extend the barrel concession, but even better yet, Mr. Speaker, you would take away the 2.5% tax because it's not working. It's having a detrimental effect on households in this country, Mr. Speaker. People are suffering. Even the sanitary napkins. I agree with it, but what we are laughing at is why for 2 years? So what, women are only going to suffer for 2 years? Make it permanent. Make it permanent. Stop coming here with piecemeal solutions to a problem, Mr. Speaker. That is where people are taking a pappy show of the government. And sadly, there are too many things that the government promised. The Prime Minister, when he was in opposition, promised, Mr. Speaker, if you remember, that instead of the $500 we gave for 3 months, he said that he would triple it. He would give them $1,500. You're now giving $1,500, so I'm just saying that's the first month. Come for the next 2 months, $3,000. $4,500 is what you promised the people, not $1,500. You said we gave $500, you would give $15. So we gave $15, you have to give $45. And you're in a better financial position today to give that to the people. And if you care about the people who are the poorest of the poor, that's what you're going to do. Mr. Speaker, it's your policies that are in a mess, and it's impacting, the policies that you have are impacting the living standards of people in this country. And you are depressing people. Mr. Speaker, I've told you, drop the 2.5% tax. Allow the barrel to be extended to 6 months. Okay? Give reprieve to the poorest of the poor. And the things that you're supposed to be doing, go and do them. Instead of selling out the assets of the state and creating a PPP to a foreign company to give them access and control of our ports, build up SLASPA, allow SLASPA to have invested it, because they're the ones who built the one at Point Seraphim and did the extension. What's the big deal about extending the North Wharf? That's not outside of the purview of SLASPA. And the revenue we would have here. And as I said to you, if GPH is so great, let them manage it and give them an incentive. If they get more cruise ships, let them get a bigger bite of it. But do not come and fool the people of this country and give a concession out of all the revenue for the next 40 years of SLASPA that you're going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to this state. And you're crying that you're poor. So that's over $400 million US in revenue you've given up over the 40 years. Okay? 400 million US. Yes. So, Mr. Speaker, this government has shown that they've lost their way. They're out of touch with what is going on the ground. And on November 30th, Mr. Speaker, they will find out what the people really have to say. That people are not happy with how you're governing the country. They're not happy with the fear and intimidation that you're using in government. They're not happy with the double standards that are taking place in this country. And for sure, this is not a government that is putting anybody first. This is a government that continues to protect the victory. Thank you.
Member for Castries Southeast.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are times in politics we say doors are open and people walk in, and I think today is indeed a classical day for this. The Prime Minister presented, and of course I'll leave my most formal part of my presentation for later, a simple and regular process of providing support to ordinary St. Lucians with getting the Christmas barrels. And I listened to the former Prime Minister and Leader of Opposition speak. And while I listen, Mr. Speaker, I will challenge the Prime Minister to come up with a special legislation for speaking untruths and passing legislation to arrest people for such. But I will tell you something, Mr. Speaker. He made reference, the former Prime Minister made reference to the fact that the 2.5% for health and security is hurting the people. But the Prime Minister on record, spoke to, and he referred to a while ago that it wasn't about the levy and security, it was about health insurance. And I heard on some public statement that they would provide to every St. Lucian health insurance. Oh, he's nodding his head in agreement with what I'm saying. I'm happy because when we come in this house, we always speak the truth. And he's nodding his head in acknowledgement of the truth. He would provide every St. Lucian with approximately $750,000 worth of health insurance, thereabout. I heard $750,000 or thereabout, whatever it is. Or $75,000 worth of health insurance every year. But I happened to do my investigation And I found out that there is a premium the government would have had to pay to secure health insurance for every St. Lucian.
Of course, yes. Yes, that was it.
Because you do not get insurance for free.
I thought it was a free lunch.
It's not a free lunch. So every year the government would have had to pay a premium.
And who owns the company?
I'm not getting into that yet. But the premium is more than what the 2.5% is being collected. Over $50 million annually.
Yes.
And intended to come to this house to raise through the same security means that we raised it,
yes,
to pay the premium annually.
Yes.
You could say what you want now. As a matter of fact, in the statement by the former Prime Minister, he indicated that we must bite the bullet. His exact words.
Now you're talking.
We must bite the bullets.
Now you're talking. What's the meaning of bite?
And I had to investigate what's the meaning of bite the bullets.
What's the meaning of bite?
Bite the bullet is when you're about to do something that is unpleasant. When you have to do something that is difficult. When you have to do something that is bitter. A bitter medicine to provide health insurance. But while he was about to provide health insurance, the hospital was incomplete. Therefore, he had to export and import medical services over from somewhere else. I heard somebody called on Cayman City.
Yes.
So St. Lucians would have, and I'm coming to the health insurance thing because I had a bout of medical problems and I had to go to the medical insurance, and I'll tell you what this former Prime Minister had in plans for St. Lucians. We would not have a hospital.
No, they would give it to Cayman City.
They would import all services. And they would give every St. Lucian health insurance. Yes, because some people already have health insurance, so they would discount them. But if the calculations, and I have a copy of it, today, first time I had a former Prime Minister
Member for Castries South, please.
How are you, Minister? You could.
There is a member from Mico South.
Yeah, the member is misleading the House, Mr. Speaker. Okay, I have zero difficulty if the member wants to have a discussion, and maybe that would be something that we can do in a subcommittee. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, his interpretation of what was doing is grossly inadequate and inaccurate. Okay. There was never an attempt to have Cayman Health City run the entire hospital. Cayman Health City was going to provide professional services to train our staff to run our basic hospital, and they were going to run an international hospital of services that we are not currently providing. And the way that the insurance works, Mr. Speaker, is yes, government would make a contribution to the premiums for the persons, the mothers who are unemployed, for the unemployed in St. Lucia, for the poorest of the poor. Government would pay that part. But everybody else who had a job, Mr. Speaker, would pay, like NIC, 50-50. And if the business house chose to pay more, so be it. But that would raise over $80 million a year to be able to fund the operations of the hospital. Okay, Mr. Speaker, but the Prime Minister said it. 80,000 people at $1,000 is $80 million.
Mr. Speaker,
member for Castries South, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So the former Prime Minister had intentions to come to this house. The Prime Minister had intentions to come to this honorable house to raise a levy to pay for medical insurance. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker. So when I calculated the figure, and I spoke with the individual who prepared the proposal for the then government, and I asked, because I did some loss adjusting, and I work with Najiko. Yes, I've done some loss adjusting. Mr. Speaker can bear me witness on this. And I understand what it is to work with insurance companies. I did a lot of work after Hurricane Maria in Dominica. So yes, there was a proposal to provide insurance to the country. And that insurance would have been the pill for everybody to have access to health care. And there was a certain amount to be paid annually. But when I heard this, I took it and I listened. But there was a statement I went back to that the then Prime Minister made in the Parliament when he introduced it. And it is that statement, Mr. Speaker, that is important in the House today. That people of St. Lucia, we must bite the bullet. Why would you tell St. Lucians that they must bite the bullet? Why? At what time do you use that phrase, that you must bite the bullet? Mr. Speaker, I did not rely on my own knowledge of what the meaning is. I consulted Google, and it reminded me of certain terms, and I said, yes, that's where I am. The unpleasantness of a decision. How difficult the decision is. Bradley, you've been quiet all the time. I think you should remain that way. You understand? Not because lowly me speaking that.
Member for Castries Southeast,
you understand?
Please do not refer to the member.
The member for me could. So thank you very much. You understand? But I'm saying that this was the difficulty that would be upon St. Lucians. But now, we did not tell, the former Prime Minister did not tell St. Lucians they must bite the bullet. He engaged them in open discussion about the 2.5% levy. But notice, when the former Prime Minister would embark upon health insurance for St. Lucians, there was no hospital in place. None. It means that the services would have to be imported. If you need a brain surgery, they would find you a place. When you are in a situation where you have purchased health insurance in that form, you are exposed and you are vulnerable because you need to buy services in accordance to what your value is. Mr. Speaker, I try to imagine they would have to get the cheapest hospital, because if you have already concluded it's $75,000 that's in the basket, and you need services costing from a hospital $150,000, you would not get it. So they would need to go and shop around, and God knows what would have ended up with St. Lucians. But worse yet, Mr. Speaker, I have an issue they're battling with an insurance company. When they tell you that the amount that you must pay is as high as Mount Everest, but you must contribute 20%, which is equivalent to Mount Jimmy, that you cannot climb. I know you do not understand that because you do not know poverty in this country. Yes, it's a strange hearing. You understand? But I will tell you, you have, oh yes I do. Oh yes I do. Oh yes I do. Oh yes I do. Let me tell you something about poverty. Let me tell you something about poverty, and that you have not lived, Mr. Former Prime Minister. My mom used to wash clothes for a living, and I used to carry the clothes on my head from a 2 Black Mallet to my mother's home. And while I am carrying the clothes, the dirty clothes on my head, the blanket would start to untie and cover my face, and I would smell the stench of the people's dirty clothes, and I have not lost the smell in my nostrils up to today. I can tell you the smell of poverty never leaves you, nor the hearing of it, it doesn't leave you. I know it up to today. That's why I know you. I do not know you by your name. I do not know you by your conduct. I know you by experience, because I've experienced you from the time of a child. People like you do not understand and will never understand. Oh yes, I do know about you. And that is why I'm saying to you this morning, oh yes, well I probably do not know, but I know some things. Well, let me tell you, I know some things. And I will tell you this morning. Oh well, proceed. Oh yes, you know everything about everybody. Yes. So I will tell you this morning that because of the situation of poverty, because of the situation of difficulties in these countries, because of what we have to do, the Minister of Health had to approach had to approach universal health care in the manner that he did. That we do not lose our hospital while we provide a basket of goods for persons that when they go to an insurance company, they will not deny them. Because right now I have a hospital bill before an insurance company, and the percentage they're willing to pay, the difference is difficult. Do you know what it cost one day in the hospital in Matnik? And you're making noise about hospitals. I did spend some time in the ICU at hospital, but I did not just rely on my health care. I decided to engage doctors, and thank God for the doctors who engaged me. And I asked them questions. And I asked, what is the cost of running your hospital? Oh my God, I was shocked. The cost of running the Matnik hospital is equivalent to the same size of our national budget. 600 million euros a year, of which 60% goes directly to staff. So when you go to Matnik for health care, the bill will be high. But how do you ask a government whose national budget is equivalent to the operations of Matnik Hospital to do what Matnik is doing? And how do you get there? How do you get there? Or you do it through insurance. To give one man or one company the entire health of St. Lucians in one business deal? In one business deal? When you have not invested a cent in your hospital, you let the St. Jude Hospital stay behind for 3 years. No hospital, but you're going to go and buy insurance for all St. Lucians? And the broker, I heard, the broker who would be processing the claims for persons who get sick was from inside.
Oh yeah.
Because the business looked well. You don't know about that? No, well, when you do your proposals, you must ask all the questions. No, NIC, it wasn't NIC.
Don't respond to them.
No, I'll not respond to you. So I'm telling you, when you speak about healthcare and about the 2.5% levy, do not discuss it in those terms, because this is an honorable, it's a positive, it's a progressive method of providing healthcare that provides security for the citizens of St. Lucia. It is incremental, but it is the best way. Insurance companies have fine lines. You know, they tell me they're not paying for that medicine. They tell me they're not paying for that surgery. They tell me they're not paying for this professional because it's not allowed in what I agreed with them. So today, when they agree to pay 70%, I have to come up with $45,000 thereabout. How does the ordinary St. Lucians who buy healthcare via an insurance company, which is your approach to solution of healthcare in this country, resolve these issues? How? Are you telling me the poor will not get heart attack? Are you telling me the poor of St. Lucians will not require brain surgery? How? How will they do that? But I understand that is a lazy way when election is approaching. It's a lazy way. But the progressive, developmental, cautious way, as we put in the basket medical support for pregnant, prenatal, and postnatal care, we are able to test it, we are able to see how it works and perfect it, and then we will put the cancers, and then we will put other medical issues as we develop our hospitals internally to provide health for our people. And this is like what my great-grandmother and my grandmother and my mother did. For those of you who have not experienced poverty, on a Sunday morning, when things are rough at home, before my mother sends me down the road, she would say, "Kitemawe kisa kila puchut." She doesn't send you and buy food before she investigates what ingredients are in the house. You understand? And sometimes it is critical enough to mix some flour, take some lentils, add some green flour, and make a healthy food. And you didn't have to go and buy something in the shop because Monday you need exercise and pencils. This is a developing country approach. This is. But you are the same prime minister, former prime minister, same former prime minister. And I'll speak some other time again, who said that you went to a school, and the teachers told you that the school toilets are not in order.
Oh yeah.
You don't leave that for another day. I saying it, I go in there. And you said the toilets are not in order, but am I not the one who fixed the toilet last week? You said the teacher, the principal of the school, call the parents of the children and tell them if they're not coming to fix the school, close it. No school.
You forget that. You forget.
Close the school. My God, I listened to this clip over and over again.
He cannot remember.
And I ask myself, what kind of leader who tells a principal of a school that if the children are not coming, if the children parents are not coming to fix the toilets in the school, that shut it down.
Yes.
I said, wow. You know what I thought of? And thank God there was investigation in my education. The domestic toilets you put in schools are not children friendly. And Wasco also do not have water all times in the school, so the children always trying to get it to flush. You will not blame Wasco. You will not blame the fact that you or we sometimes invest money unwisely for schools. Because toilet for schools are over $3,000 per one. They are smaller, they are colored, they are more friendly designed for children. But you put domesticated toilets in a school and you say you must punish the children because the schools, the children have it, there's some toilets and problem. A leader doesn't say that. A leader doesn't say such a thing. Insensitivity, and you come here and you tell me that you care about poor people. My deceased son, I bought one keyboard, he damaged it. I bought the second one, he damaged it. I bought the most expensive one and he became an accomplished keyboard player before he died. Yes. I believe in investing in children because they are the heritage of the Lord and they are the future of St. Lucia. That's what we believe in. Not to punish them because they made an error. Or you do not know what it is to have children and maybe make them make errors. Maybe you do not know that. I don't know. I'm asking. So when you stand here today, and I listen to so much of what has been said, and today I said I would not say anything. But honestly, I've heard it enough. I've heard enough. No, today is my first day. Today is my first day. No, you have not heard me yet, sir. You have not heard me yet. I can tell you have not heard me yet. But I'll tell you, a lot of what is being said by you, had it been to a St. Lucian who carries a different accent, it would not have been registered in the way that it is registered. Because St. Lucians love your accent. I like to hear you speak. There's a sing-song story about when people who are different to us speak. It reminds me of the bouillon of life, where you put the carrot, the meat and the thing. So in Guyana they call it there's a name in Guyana, they call it mix. You understand? They call it some bouillon type. That's what it is. No, because we are accustomed having all different persons in our population who speak and we relate to. You understand? So I'm telling you, while I listen, but I'm telling you, you get away with too many things. And today, I'm setting the record straight. Enough is enough. Come good, come straight, and there's room for that kind of opposition. But if you're going to continue to mislead this country, we will speak out and we can tell St. Lucians exactly where it is. Your approach and asking St. Lucians for war because of the 2-point levy is deceiving and regressing progression. If you campaign on this, you could never govern on this. So be real with St. Lucians, because we have a real people, a real country to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Denry North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a very brief intervention in support of the motion to exempt import of certain items in barrels. And there are two periods that have been cited in the motion, from the 1st of November to the 29th of February, and that applies to barrels that are shipped by loved ones overseas to their counterparts in St. Lucia. And the other part of the motion, Mr. Speaker, speaks specifically to members of parliament who are desirous of importing toys, food items, and care products for distribution and use in their respective constituencies. And that period is from the 1st of November to the 31st of January. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this is progressive, notwithstanding that it has been in the making for some time. And when the Prime Minister presented, he did allude to the fact that this was the brainchild of his predecessor, Labour Party Prime Minister and member for Vieux-Fort South. But Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me to express support for the motion and not reference the misguided, desperate, and incoherent presentation that came from the former Prime Minister and Minister and member for Mikud South. Mr. Speaker, what we saw here this morning was a brilliant exhibition of showmanship, a flawless display of parliamentary hypocrisy, and we saw a portrait of political desperation. And for those persons who are in the chamber for the first time and who would never have seen him before in this chamber, you would believe that here is a man who means well. Here is a man with policy. But this is the same individual, today, hypocritically posturing as a champion of poor people. Today he has ascribed to himself the title of advocate of poor people. But what did he do when he was the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker? Where he was in a position to formulate policies that would have enabled poor people to rise out of poverty and improve their lot. Mr. Speaker, he does not like poor people. And history is replete with examples of things he did when he was Prime Minister, things that were at variance with policies that he found in government that were meant to improve the situation of poor people. Mr. Speaker, on Mother's Day, when poor people who could not find employment in the machinery of government decided to resort to trays as vendors to sell on the streets of Castries and in the market on Mother's Day. Single mothers whose trays were packed on the sidewalk, Mr. Speaker. Under his prime ministerial watch, he sent the authorities to collect the trays and to dump them in a place where they were not accessible by single mothers. And today the same hypocrite stands here and wants to speak on behalf of poor people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in recognition of the fact that poor people, they will not be able to build or construct homes to the tune of $200,000 and $300,000, but they can sacrifice, they can save and buy a few sheets of plywood and knock it up and have shelter and comfort for themselves and their children. Notwithstanding the amenities may not be the greatest, but there's a pride that lives or resides in those plywood structures. And we know on many occasions, Mr. Speaker, when we listen to the news, you hear of a house having been destroyed by fire, and they didn't have insurance. Some of them had not even finished the small loans, pay off the small loans for the homes that they had constructed. And in his wisdom, the former Prime Minister and member for Vieux-Fort South, he introduced as a line item in the budget the distress fund, so that those persons, when their houses were destroyed, they would have gotten a lifeline compliments the government. As a line item, the distress fund under the member for Mikud South was withdrawn from the budget, Mr. Speaker. But today, who comes here and postures as an advocate of poor people. Mr.
Member for
Speaker,
Denry South, for Denry North, this one.
Point of order again, and the member from Denry is Denry South, Denry North is misleading the House. We did not withdraw the fund. The fund is a humongous fund, and we broadened the amount of money that we spent. So if the member going to go in, and you're in government, so you can go and check the facts for yourself. We were spending upwards of $6 million a year on helping people with medical issues, housing issues, and distress. And all the facts are there for them, Mr. Speaker. That's where it came from.
Mr. Speaker, I will repeat verbatim what I said. I said as a line item in the budget, the distress fund disappeared. And I challenge the member for Mikud South to take copies of the estimates during the period he was Prime Minister and show me a line item in it where it says distress fund. That is what I said, Mr. Speaker. It disappeared. But today, Mr. Speaker, he comes and he postures as a champion of the poor. Mr. Speaker, we as an administration between 2011 and 2016, we recognized that there was a need for the children of St. Lucia to have been online. And under the member for Viewfort South again as Prime Minister, we introduced the One Laptop Per Child program. Upon entry into government, under his watch, this self-proclaimed champion of the poor, he stopped the One Laptop Per Child program. And when, Mr. Speaker, the pressure began to mount, and I know you were there in the cabinet at the time, they quickly tried to bring in a program that they believe would have sufficed. Mr. Speaker, this champion of the poor, or self-proclaimed champion of the poor, when he is not well or members of his family are faced with certain medical challenges, he has the means to be able to fly them overseas. Upon entering this government as Prime Minister, he found that a hospital that had been damaged by fire was being repaired. Mr. Speaker, that started during the reign of the member for Castries North. And after the United Workers' Party was voted out of office and the St. Lucia Labour Party entered in 2011, the member for Viewfort South, former Prime Minister, he continued with the plans he made there to give the people of the South a hospital. But then came in 2016 the member for Mikud South, self-proclaimed champion of the poor. What did he do? He stopped construction on the hospital, not for 2 days or 2 weeks, for 3 years. And whilst construction on the hospital had halted, Mr. Speaker, less than 100 yards away, he was busy facilitating construction of facilities for horses to come and gallop. Yeah. You did not remember at the time that the poor people on whose behalf you want to speak today needed healthcare facilities when you were busy preparing for horses? But you come and you posture here today as if you are a champion of the poor. That is the hypocrisy that characterizes his politics, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what he did. This champion of the poor, let me tell you what he did, Mr. Speaker. When he came into government, Mr. Speaker, he found a program in government known as the Constituency Development Program, the CDP. And when the CDP was established as a program in government, every single one of the 17 members of parliament would have received resources to execute projects in their constituencies, whether you were opposition or in government. He came in, Mr. Speaker, and he found the program entrenched. What did he do? There were 6 of us in opposition, and we had poor people in our constituencies, as we still do today, who used to come knocking at our constituency doors asking for help with basic things, Mr. Speaker. But as a deliberate policy ploy from him, you know what he did? He starved us of resources. And after the 5 years were up for elections, he dragged us into a 6th year. And for 6 years, he did not give a single project to anybody in opposition to help the poor in their constituencies. But today, out of convenience, he stands here and wants to lecture us about poor people. Mr. Speaker, there is a shamelessness that characterizes the politics of this particular member, and it needs to stop. So don't come here and posture as an advocate of poor people. You don't like poor people. All he did prior to election was to take selfies and photos with poor people so it can resonate on social media. You don't like poor people? You don't dump the trays of poor people and come here today and pretend you're for poor people. You don't starve opposition parliamentarians of resources to help poor people. And as it is convenient, I know what it's like to be in opposition, you know. I start across there, and you're just halfway through the term, and you have more days in opposition to come. So don't come and boost people as if you're a champion of the poor. Mr. Speaker, I believe this intervention by the Prime Minister is progressive, it is necessary. And for constituents like those in Denry North that have had the pleasure of representing after 3 general elections, I know, Mr. Speaker, this will touch lives, because they rely heavily on remittances throughout the year. And when, Mr. Speaker, when in December, to help spread the Christmas cheer, they look forward to receiving barrels and other items from overseas. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to say Mr. Speaker, I'm going to dire here that je vais supporter des marches Premier ministre à Japon, côté, il a encouragé les gens pour voir barrel descendre et puis commission had et puis l'autre bagaille by from you en saison Noël. Tous les années, c'est une tradition qu'on peut jouer un barrel n'importe où en l'année. Mais nous tous savons, Mr. Speaker, les gens qui viennent plus pour Noël, c'est les gens qui ont plus barrel qui sont sortis de l'autre pays. Nous voulons prendre l'occasion pour aussi dire, just ici, that we have to use the concession responsibly. And as the Prime Minister would have indicated in during his presentation of the motion, let us ensure that all the items in the barrels are items that do not contravene the laws of St. Lucia. Leave the illegal items out. There should be no guns, no weapons in those barrels, Mr. Speaker. The explanation is clear, it is simple in terms of what we expect in those barrels. And so I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I unequivocally support this particular intervention on behalf of the government. And I need to say to those of you in the chamber, notwithstanding what you would have heard, do your research and you will know who the real champions of poor people are in this country. You will know which government has made it possible for poor people who cannot even access health care. We know who, Mr. Speaker, has made it law in this country for them not to pay the ambulance fees. We know which government is responsible for that. So don't come here today and think that you can speak on behalf of poor people and that will be your path to victory. Poor people are not as stupid as you think, you know. Poor people are more discerning than you believe. I'm from a poor family, and several of us are. So be careful, Mr. Speaker, with who wants to come here and lecture us on poverty. And when they were given an opportunity, a very solid mandate to come and stand up for poor people, almost every policy initiative that they, Mr. Speaker, put forward in this country was inimical to the plight of poor people, the well-being of poor people. And today, Mr. Speaker, I want to support, as I said, unequivocally, this motion by the Prime Minister to waive certain duties on barrels to help spread the Christmas cheer and to give our people, Mr. Speaker, a Merry Christmas and a prosperous start to the ensuing year.
The member for Castries South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in expressing the support for the motion which is before this House. The member from Castries East explained that this was a motion which started from the time of the leadership of the member for Beaufort South. It is a continuation of a benefit offered by the government for families that have relatives overseas who are able to send them barrels, and it even extended to persons in the middle class who go overseas to shop and to send their goods and other commodities to St. Lucia. And I want to express my support because I know many of my constituents are looking forward to this time of the year when they can benefit from the barrels concessions. Mr. Speaker, the member for Miku South, in responding to the member of Castries East, sought to expand his presentation beyond the subject matter of the motion, and he justified it on the basis that the member from Castries East had dealt with a number of issues. But, Mr. Speaker, I too would like to take the latitude and respond to some of the issues that were raised. The member from Miku South says that this should be extended to June. He claims he's a champion of the poor. He's speaking on behalf of the poor, and that things are hard in this country. Mr. Speaker, every single one of us will agree that things are hard. We know it is hard. It is hard globally, Mr. Speaker. Globally. There is a crisis facing the world economy. Rising inflation. Countries are struggling to bring it under control. And of course, as an open economy, we import inflation. He himself used the term imported inflation. So we all know it is hard. It is because it is so hard that this government has gone out of its way to give so much support to the poor people of this country, Mr. Speaker, including the distribution of food vouchers to many of our needy constituents. So we know it is hard, Mr. Speaker. This member, and you would recall, never during the COVID period extended this to June. Never did. During COVID, when things were so difficult in this country, things were so hard globally, he never, as a champion of the poor, extended it to June. Do you know what they did, Mr. Speaker? They expanded the concessions under the barrels. It's only this government that brought it back to what it was. I don't know how many members remember that in here. It was expanded to include lights, personal gifts of parliamentarians, and a set of other items that they could have brought in duty-free. We stood up in this house as members of the opposition and we decried it. We said that was not the rationale for this benefit provided to poor people in this country. That's what they did. The same person who's standing up here saying he's a champion of the poor and this should be extended to June, never extended it to June when it was most needed. And in fact, what they did was to expand the benefits so they could benefit more from it. When we came into government in July 2021, we amended it and brought it back in line with what it was intended to be. Mr. Speaker, but he professes to be a champion of the poor. Now, Mr. Speaker, in a later debate this afternoon, under the Investment Amendment Act, I will deal with the GPH issue. I'll take my time and go through the GPH issue because the member is notorious for his untruths, Mr. Speaker. He's notorious for it, Mr. Speaker. The member is standing up in this house and saying, you sold the port. Why did you, how did we sell the port? Well, if you give a concession to somebody for 30 years or 40 years and they're collecting the revenue, then you have sold it. Now, does that make sense? Is that what sale is? But he's all over saying that we've sold the port. But I'll come back to GPH this afternoon, Mr. Speaker. I just want to give a couple of other issues, Mr. Speaker. He says that SLASPA is being bankrupted by this agreement. Again, Mr. Speaker, I will respond to it this afternoon. I will explain to you what percentage of SLASPA revenue is from cruise tax, what percentage is from seaport operations, and I'll explain it, Mr. Speaker. And I hope he's there. He wouldn't be there. I hope he's there this afternoon. If I know you will not be there, I'll deal with it now, or you'll be right there. But let's deal with an issue, Mr. Speaker, that he brought up, a ticklish one, about the leader must be a St. Lucian. And he called on the member from Castries East to sanction the member from Castries Central because he said they should have a referendum on how we plan to change the law so that the leader of the country must be born in St. Lucia. So, Mr. Speaker, what is wrong with the people in St. Lucia having a debate as to whether their leader must be born in their country. But what is wrong with this? In the US, for you to be president, you must be born in the US. Each one of us have our own views as to whether the head of government and head of state should be born in St. Lucia. We all have our views.
Member for Castries South. Yes, member from Mico South.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, the member is misleading the House. I never said that the member of Castries Central be sanctioned for his comments about the citizenship. I said he should be sanctioned for being on his show in saying that he was receiving information from police officers on citizens of this country. And I was only bringing up the reference of the point that the member from Castries Central made about citizenship, because the Prime Minister says he doesn't know where that came from. It came from his own colleague. I just want a point of clarification. I have no issues with any debate to take place in this country. And in fact, I think it's so important. I think we should have a referendum on it.
Thank you, member from Mico South, but please don't stand on a point of order and end on a point of clarification. The two are entirely different. Member for Castries South.
So, Mr. Speaker, I think it's a debate we should have in this country. Yes. We should have it. We should have it. We don't necessarily need to have a referendum. I don't know, the constitutional lawyers will decide whether you have to have referendum or not. I don't know. There are certain things in the Constitution that requires referendum, and there are those that do not require referendum. But, Mr. Speaker, because if you said you were born in Martinique because there were complications with your birth, and if you then said you became a citizen of the United States, and are you still a citizen of the United States? I don't know, or whether you gave it up and whatnot, and that you are a product of Canada, and you were a citizen of Canada, and you are a citizen of Ireland, it gets complicated. So, Mr. Speaker, I didn't say you. I said, I don't know if you said you. I don't know if you are this or you are that or that. But let's move on. Let's move on. But let's have the debate. And I wish we would have the debate on whether the leader and the leader of government and state should be St. Lucian. I think we should have the broader constitutional debates in this country as to how we structure our government, Mr. Speaker. And I know that there is an effort being made for us to complete that process that was started by the member from Beaufort South. But the member said what he really spoke about was that the member from Castries Central said that he was getting information from the police about private citizens. And that's not true, Mr. Speaker. The member did not say that. The members, from my recollection, the member was referring to his times when he was a lawyer. And he said that he had gone to the police station and he had gotten information, blah, blah, blah. But, Mr. Speaker, this member has no shame. No shame. You want to speak about persons getting information from the police, politicians. This member, the member of the Minister for National Security in his government, announced publicly that he, as the Minister of National Security, would have weekly meetings with the DPP and the AG at the time so they can coordinate their actions. Think about that. That is dangerous. The Minister of National Security, the DPP, and the AG are meeting weekly to coordinate their actions. Isn't there a separation that's supposed to take place? He said so. But let me tell you more about that member from Mico South that speaks about information from the police. Mr. Speaker, everybody knows my history, my short experience so far in this political arena. The member has come after me full blast. He tried everything, Mr. Speaker, and I survived it. And I will continue to survive it, Mr. Speaker. And one day, in our private moments, I'll tell you my secret, Mr. Speaker. Do you know what happened? He set up a special investigative unit to investigate me. Yeah. They went to the United Kingdom, Mr. Speaker. On their second visit, COVID struck and the UK shut down, and they were trapped, they were locked up in a hotel in the UK. I don't want to call their names. They went all over the UK. They asked the Scotland Yard to investigate me. I have the emails that were sent, Mr. Speaker. Emails that were sent asking people information about me in the UK. He did it. It gets worse, Mr. Speaker. The second in command in the High Commission came back to St. Lucia, and the investigative unit asked to interview him. And do you know where they asked him to come for the interview? At the residence of the Prime Minister. Wow. I am saying it in this house, and I will say it in public. I've said it in public before. The unit asked him to come to the residence of the Prime Minister for an interview. And his lawyer told him, under no circumstances that would happen. He could not believe that. Could not believe that. He, the member from Miku South, and he wants to chastise a member who said, who is a lawyer, who went to the police to get information on a client. It gets worse. This member from Miku South would write to the United States government to ask them to get into my Gmail account and provide them with all my Gmail emails, all of them, so he can read my Gmail messages to see what I've been doing. He, the member from Miku South, Mr. Speaker. No, you're saying we say that. Okay, Mr. Speaker, this member from Miku South, this talks about politicians getting information from the police. Send police to my house to search my house, Mr. Speaker. Yes. And you stood up in your little balcony watching, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this member
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
the member is making
Member for Gashie South.
Mr. Speaker, the member is misleading the House. There's no way a
Mr. Speaker, can I continue,
any
please?
order for any of those things. I challenge him to provide any evidence that a Prime Minister would have sat there and given any order for a person's house to be searched. There's a process that has to go through, and it's not within the purview of a Prime Minister to do that. So I would like him to withdraw that statement, Mr. Speaker, because it's categorically false, and it gives the wrong impression of what transpired.
Mr. Speaker, I start off by saying to you that the Minister of National Security, the DPP and the AG, the Minister of National Security said, his name is Mr. Francis. Maybe you might know him, Mr. Speaker, that he and the DPP and the AG sat together and coordinated their actions. He said so in public. In public. A very famous Mr. Francis. Mr. Speaker. Very famous one. But Mr. Speaker.
Member, he has, no, not me. He has asked that you withdraw the statement about the Prime Minister gave the instructions.
Withdraw the statement that the Prime Minister gave the instructions.
I gave the instructions to search your home. How can I give instructions to search your home?
Mr. Speaker, I can go even further. Mr. Chico, who was a former controller of customs, Mr. Speaker, wrote a report saying that the Prime Minister, this member from Miku South, directed him to go after Ernest Hilaire. That was in a report prepared, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can I proceed? Honorable member from Miku South, I have said to you, Mr. Speaker, member from Miku South, I have learned in life that you don't harbor hate. You don't destroy who you are as a person for have hatred or disdain, dislike for people. You fight your battles and you move on. So, but I've just started, honorable member. Honorable member, I have just started. You have a torturous future ahead of you. Mr. Speaker, let me go on. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a long day here. I'll be coming back again. The member from Miku South speaks about the patrimony of St. Lucia being sold because of the lease arrangement with GPH. Can you imagine that? The member from Miku South. Yes. He had so much disdain for St. Lucia. Yeah. He stood up in a global forum and dismissed the value of our country and our people, and said all this talk about patrimony and preserving is nonsense. Your patrimony is measured by your credit rating. And other prime ministers had looked at him shocked. In fact, one described him thereafter as a not too smart prime minister. You as a prime minister of St. Lucia stood up in a global forum, and rather than protect the heritage and the patrimony of your country, you dissed St. Lucia. Said it was nonsense those people in St. Lucia were talking about preserving, and that your patrimony is measured by your credit rating. And you want to come here today. You want to come here today and to say that you, Mr. Speaker, care about St. Lucia and that we are selling the patrimony of St. Lucia. But we'll come again to this, Mr. Speaker. A final comment, Mr. Speaker, because I know the member from Castries want to tie up this debate. Tourism arrivals. Mr. Speaker, you know, I'll tell you something else, Mr. Speaker. I have had some wonderful teachers in my life, academic-wise, professional, and even political, Mr. Speaker. And you learn sometimes, Mr. Speaker, to stay focused on what's important and don't let the noise distract you. This is a member who was Minister of Tourism, got $50 million a year to promote tourism. The member from Castries North was his prime minister, gave him $50 million. He promised him 7 hotels. And a lot of things, Mr. Speaker. What he was most noted for? What he was most noted for was a monthly telephone bill of about $60,000 and his travels and the hotel expenses. That's what he was most noted for, Mr. Speaker. Nothing distinguishable about him during his time as Minister of Tourism. And he's supposed to be a tourist guru. Tourism guru. He came back as Prime Minister.
He lost one investment, $20 million.
Well, we don't even talk about that. I'll deal with that this afternoon. He came back as Prime Minister. Came back as Prime Minister and has nothing to show in his 5 years as Prime Minister of Tourism. Not one hotel was built in St. Lucia during his time as Minister of Tourism or as Prime Minister.
On the point of order,
South.
I've heard the member from, Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, members misleading the House again. I've heard the member several times, and you know what, I've chosen not to say it, where he says that not one hotel was built during my tenure. That's not true.
Which one was built? Which one?
Coconut Bay.
Coconut Bay?
No. The new high-end hotel there, the 40 rooms. Okay? Yes?
Which one? Wait.
In Coconut Bay.
Where?
The second hotel that they have there. You don't know that? A brand new hotel. Okay? 40 rooms.
14 rooms?
40 rooms. Okay? The cabinet was taking place. Okay? The Marriott Courtyard that's broken ground. Who did it? You did it? You did it? You did it? Did you do it? Did you do it? Yes, I did. Was the one who, it's already being built. It's on the fifth floor. Huh?
No, I didn't ask you.
So the member continues to say it, Mr. Speaker, that no new rooms were built. That's a categorical lie.
You know, Mr. Speaker, can I continue, please? You know, the member is so delusional. The developer who was building the hotel at Marriott was brought to St. Lucia under Dr. Kenny Anthony's administration. They came, they wanted to build a number of hotels in St. Lucia. A number of hotels. They came to build a number of hotels. I can tell you that, Mr. Speaker, because I was involved in the discussions. The first hotel they thought of starting was Shabusha in Strozel, and they were going to look for other properties to build a number of other hotels in St. Lucia. Of course, they're building the second hotel now at Point Seraphine, and they will start a third next year in St. Lucia. They came under Dr. Anthony's watch. Mr. Speaker, so the same group that came, they started this one. They decided, because there were issues with Shabusha, environmental issues, a set of issues, so they decided that was getting too difficult for them. They started a second one, and they will start a third next year, because they came from the start to build a number of hotels in St. Lucia. They were diversifying from construction into hospitality. There's nothing new. The only thing that was brought into St. Lucia under the last government was Ojo Labs. And we all know the arrangement that was put in place for them. So anyway, I don't even want to remind you of the origin. Anyway, let me go on. So he's speaking about tourism arrivals. And Mr. Speaker, I know that every day they spend they are longing to hear bad news about tourism. They want bad news about tourism. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, and I will present it at the appropriate time, tourism arrivals for this year will increase over last year. We had a difficult summer, like almost all other countries in the Caribbean. I can give you the data, Mr. Speaker. This afternoon, okay, he says nobody else had a difficult summer. This afternoon, I'll make a document of the House, the arrivals for all the other countries, to show you how bad the others did. Because the summer was tight, there was no equipment, and the number of seats declined, Mr. Speaker. Now, all of what's happening, Mr. Speaker, I am no guru in tourism. I never worked in the hospitality sector. I'm no guru. I have some good teachers. I have some good colleagues in cabinet who share advice and opinions with me, and I learned well, Mr. Speaker. And I try to be a fast learner. We make mistakes, but we try to correct them as quickly as possible so we can move on in the business of the government. We do not start off by saying, I'm going to run this country as a business. I'm a CEO, Prime Minister. That's how they started off. They were not going to run this country for the people and putting the people first. He was going to be a CEO, Prime Minister, and he's going to run this as a business. And his first act was to say to St. Lucians, you all cannot prepare a proper budget. So I'm going to bring in Ernst & Young and pay them $6 million to prepare a proper budget. The CEO, Prime Minister. 5 years later, where is the CEO, Prime Minister? Where is the CEO, Prime Minister? So, Mr. Speaker, he said Pinocchio like I lied. You know, seriously. But, Mr. Speaker, you know, can you imagine someone says he knows nothing about a levy to be introduced, and you produce the clipping for him, standing here in the teleprompters, saying they establish a committee to invest, to prepare to introduce it, blah blah blah, versus he's saying he knows nothing about that, he never heard about the levy, and he says that's fake. Well, I don't know, but Mr. Speaker, let me end by expressing my support for this. I don't know if you recall, Mr. Speaker, the last time the members came to this House, you don't know what they did with this resolution? They had ordered all the items, all, and they came to the House about 3 weeks before Christmas, remember that? In early December to pass the resolution, not telling us that. And they backdated it from September, because all their stuff had already been imported and was in St. Lucia. And they came here in December and said parliamentarians can order things for Christmas. That's what they did. That's what they did the last time he had a chance to pass this motion. Very deceitful. So, Mr. Speaker, I express my support for this motion, and I look forward to we contributing as much as we can over the Christmas to bring some cheer and goodwill and to make it a little easier for our constituents. Thank you very much.
The member for Grosley.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion to exempt taxes on imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables for the people of St. Lucia. And I do so understanding that this is a time that the people of Grosley look forward to having a festive season and enjoying the company of friends and family. Mr. Speaker, I sat and I listened attentively to some of the statements made by the former Prime Minister and member for Miku South. And I started to wonder whether or not this individual was not a sitting Prime Minister for 5 years. And if this was not the Prime Minister that went historically into a 6th year in this country, and on not one occasion, no matter what the circumstance was, ever suggested for a moment extending this relief through June. Not once, never, not even a consideration. And I sat down and I pondered on where we are as a country, and I know people forget very, very quickly. And so I am duty bound to remind them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so much conversation about extending that time, which would mean, for sure, there are cost implications. So much consideration and conversation about removing levy, removing all the hardly considered and discussed taxes that we as a government know we need to move this country forward in a safe, secure, and healthy manner. But Mr. Speaker, I thought about how we as a government could have moved this country so much further had we not have the election result of 2016. I remember the member for Castries East always saying, elections matter. And for some reason, all of a sudden, there is a complete lack of discussion about what happened during that period. Mr. Speaker, here are some of the facts. If at the end of the day, the member for Miku South can give us the hundreds of millions spent on DFCs during that final year of his administration, then maybe we can consider extending these concessions to beyond. Because had he been a responsible Prime Minister, we would have never been in the position we found ourselves in 2021 as a new government. Facts. Mr. Speaker, he can consider to also give us back the millions on vaccines that he so hastily decided that he was going to run towards, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he can also decide to give us back the $32 million given to Lockerbie. $32 million, Mr. Speaker, under his watch. But, Mr. Speaker, with half of that, I would have been able to develop our infrastructure, our sporting infrastructure, in a safe and healthy way, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, we cannot right now ignore a lot of the facts, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he can decide that perhaps if we got the 20 million spent on less than 1.5 mile of roads in Rodney Bay, Mr. Speaker, if as a financier or the Minister of Finance, that horrible decision was not taken on a piece of road, no designs, Mr. Speaker, wastage, start, stop, roundabout here, roundabout there, no, take it out. Mr. Speaker, wastage during that period, perhaps, Mr. Speaker, we could have extended from June and beyond, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, when you look at some of what happened, Mr. Speaker, millions and millions spent in rent, millions, government agencies, rentals to familiar individuals with familiar last names, Mr. Speaker, raking up millions in rent in this country, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps we could have considered extending the barrel concessions to later, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are not going to forget the millions of dollars spent on traveling, Mr. Speaker, the millions of dollars spent on air conditioning, Mr. Speaker, being a vehicle on for the entire day until he returns to it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, wastage in this great land, Mr. Speaker, wastage. And now we are talking about, oh, if I was there, we would have extended until June. You didn't it? And Mr. Speaker, we sit down and it's like all of a sudden, a lot of things did not happen. And we're talking about a match, a MATCH, a match, Mr. Speaker, to vaguely people, as the member for Castries East would say, and I hope I can borrow it, flashing mirrors, Mr. Speaker. as if our people are so 43%ers and we do not understand the nature of what we felt this government and what we have done to stabilize the economy and set us on the right track. And so, Mr. Speaker, we've done what we had to do. And Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on. Perhaps if you give us the $600,000 spent on the week leading up to an election, perhaps spending on electioneering, Mr. Speaker, perhaps we would have been able to extend and do more, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, $300,000 spent on medals during COVID-19, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps if we had a more responsible government during that time, a more responsible government at that time, we would have been better off today. Mr. Speaker, if we had not spent millions and millions on horse racing, Mr. Speaker, horses, Mr. Speaker, before people, perhaps would have been in a better position. But Mr. Speaker, the member for Castries East has been stout and he has put this great nation on the right path, and that is an absolute fact, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I listened attentively, Mr. Speaker, and I thought about water for a little bit, Mr. Speaker, and I thought about millions of dollars, Mr. Speaker, that were earmarked for desilting a dam, Mr. Speaker. You don't want to hear it? You don't want to hear the facts? Millions of dollars that were earmarked for desilting a dam during his time, Mr. Speaker. And yet still, Mr. Speaker, wastage, 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 Mr. Speaker. Our people will not forget Madi Puete. Mr. Speaker, I listened to the member also speak about being so into the poor of this country, Mr. Speaker. And we've heard so much conversation about racism in this country, Mr. Speaker, all of a sudden, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I remember a statement made that I'd be very concerned after the election, an individual indicating that his very class did not vote for him, Mr. Speaker. I said, Kisa? So, we speak so much about racism when in many minds we live in a very classist society. And we probably as a country need to have a discussion on classism. Because at the end of the day, we have to figure out what was going on during this administration that a particular class was supposed to have supported a particular individual. And we come and all of a sudden we posture and posture and posture, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I was very surprised that the member for Dennery North did not mention, Mr. Speaker, in his analysis of how hypocritical it is for this member to speak about doing things for the less fortunate. He did not mention Julian Alfred, Mr. Speaker. And so I have to remind St. Lucia that this individual, who's not from a well-off family, who had just about 100 US just meted to her for a stipend to take care of herself, Mr. Speaker, withdrawn from her, Mr. Speaker, discontinued, Mr. Speaker, and today we are talking about the poor, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this was the same government, Mr. Speaker, that I remember sitting at home and thinking that this parliament session will not end at 1 o'clock in the morning, came to this honorable house to propose taxes on pudding, Mr. Speaker, on charcoal, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, this former leader has selective amnesia, Mr. Speaker. Because at the end of the day, you listen and you...
Sir, member for Mico South, I have been very lenient to the crosstalk, but it's getting excessive and out of hand, so please allow the member to continue. Please go ahead, member for Grizzly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll not be deterred, Mr. Speaker. I'll not be deterred, because the facts are facts, and facts are not what you believe them to be. They are facts, Mr. Speaker. This is the same former Prime Minister who came into this house to propose taxation on people that were fishermen, Mr. Speaker. They are not millionaires. Proposed taxation on charcoal, on pudding, Mr. Speaker. And today, all of a sudden, you come to this house and you speak about poor people. I couldn't believe that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will head soon. Mr. Speaker, this is the same individual who oversaw a minister for social transformation get rid of nice workers and come on national TV and say 90% of them were SLP, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, nice workers in the elderly care program, Mr. Speaker, none of them are wealthy. And he, at that time, said nothing. Nothing, Mr. Speaker. And you want to talk about the poor? Give me a break. Unbelievable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is the same man. During COVID-19, Mr. Speaker, we saw unequal distribution of the resources of this country as we've never seen before. We saw people that were struggling, but on the opposition side, bypassed on a road when groceries were being distributed, Mr. Speaker. St. Lucians, can you remember? It's not too long ago. Bypassed people in Grosile, in Bexar, in Ancillary that were not supporters of the United Workers' Party and distributed the bags to supporters, Mr. Speaker. And you want to come to this honorable house today and talk about the poor? If I was the member for Choiseul, I would nudge him and tell him, Professor, I'm not sure you would understand, but I would tell him, don't do that. Don't go there. To quote the member from Sufred, don't go there. Your track record is horrible as it pertains to dealing with the poor people of this country. And so, Mr. Speaker, we know that as a government, we are not alone in this global village. It's a fact. There is not one country in this world who is not experiencing tough times as a result of inflation. Not one, Mr. Speaker. So to use this to play on the minds of individuals and to order a match, knowing full well that not one country in this world currently has it easy, is not just hypocrisy. It's not hypocritical only. It's desperate, Mr. Speaker. This is desperation. Mr. Speaker, I'll be paying very close attention, Mr. Speaker. Very close attention to what is being said in all social media and on television. Because as the Prime Minister said, there is this attempt to just lie and deceive our people. And some of them may fall prey to it. But the vast majority know that this government is genuine about putting the people first. And so, my people of Grosile, my people of Rodney Bay, Rodney Heights, my people of Corinth, Monnier, Bonte, that for years have been the major contributors, the major taxpayers in Cap Estate and Marisil and all of those areas, that with this government, we have a proper allocation and responsible governance of your taxes. Now is not the time to cower to their devices. We need to, as a government, continue to function and continue to be responsible about what we say and continue to help our people in an honest way. Thank you so much.
Member for Mico South.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a correction. I wanted to make sure I had the information, I provided with the information before I make this statement. That this continual claim by the government that we never extended the barrel concession, I do remember that we did. The member said that all we did is we expended the concessions or the items. The fact is I've given you and I've provided you with the bill that was approved in this House, in which we gave the concessions from June all the way until January. during the COVID period. And the member is right. We did expand the items because people could not get stuff. So in fact, this government, my government, did provide over a 6-month period for the concessions, and therefore the precedence is there. And if that's what you needed in order to do that, I'm encouraging you to do the same thing.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I said he never extended it to June. He's standing up to the House to give you evidence that it started in June but ended in January. How can ending something in January be evidence that you extended it to June? You started it, you just read, it started in June and it ended in January. Mr. Speaker, seriously, Mr. Speaker, how could you starting in June, ending in January be evidence that you had extended it to June?
Because we gave it for 6 months. We did it for 6 months, and so the precedent is there, so let's do it for the 6 months. Because it is just as bad today.
Member for
Thank
Castries.
you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sat here and I listened to the member from Mico South. Something must be very, very wrong. And I can only... First of all, Mr. Speaker, he believes that I got annoyed. I'll get annoyed. So he tries to make me annoyed. I'm not annoyed. I'm passionate. I believe in what I say. You think you can ever get me? You think you can ever get me annoyed? Never. I wouldn't try that. I wouldn't try that. But I never said that. You are the one who said, "Can't get me angry." You not get me angry. You not get me angry. I am not angry. When anything I say is deliberate. I'm not angry. I'm deliberate. I'm not angry. Yes, I'm deliberate. Anything I say, I'm deliberate. And the problem is that what you expect will not happen. That's up to you to find out. Mr. Speaker, the only country in the world, Mr. Speaker, that is not being affected by what's happening now. There is no country in the world, Mr. Speaker. And the members of the opposition, they continue to peddle these lies about the cost of food. Every country is suffering from imported inflation, from events that liquor islands like ours have absolutely no control over. It is arguably one of the most difficult times to run countries during this time, Mr. Speaker. Plus, that these factors seem to be piling. Ukraine, then Palestine and Israel, now the problem in the Panama Canal, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me give you a few examples, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this member for Mico South has not come up with one workable solution as to how to solve the price of imported goods in this country. Not one workable solution. But what he's not saying is that we've removed VAT on building materials. What he's not saying is remove VAT on equipment, on medical equipment. What he's not saying, Mr. Speaker, is that we have zero-rated many items, and we are in the process of continuing the debate on the zero rating and the exempt goods as far as VAT is concerned, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the member is a man of plans. All what he knows is plans. Plans and renderings. There is no tangible proof of anything he did in this country. What he says is that COVID, he spoke about St. Vincent, Mr. Speaker. I was in Grenada a few months ago. I saw hotels that were built between 2019 and 2021. Grenada had COVID. Grenada had COVID, Mr. Speaker. I saw hotels that were built between 2021. I saw hotels that were built when the elections in Lucia were held in 2016. when they won in 2016. I saw evidence of hotels starting in 2017 and ending 2019 because of COVID, and after that they stopped and started again. I saw nothing of that nature in St. Lucia. During COVID, Mr. Speaker, this government got $302 million worth of concessionary finance during COVID. $302 million of concessionary finance. They only spent $7 million for import support. And that $7 million came from the National Insurance Scheme. All the import support that came from National Insurance. This government had absolutely no reserves to give anybody any income support. Countries like Grenada had reserves from the Treasury that they paid for import support. We in 2019, when COVID struck, this country had absolutely no reserves. The primary account and the current account had gone into deficit already. And when inherited from the Minister of Finance, it was in surplus. He inherited a surplus, and the figures can show. But and he continues with that lie. There was a primary surplus in 2016. There was a primary surplus. There was a primary surplus in 2016. And when you gave it to us, you gave it to us in a primary deficit. That's what you gave. After you'd borrowed $302 million from concessionary finance.
Member for Miku South.
Mr. Speaker, there's a fundamental difference between a primary surplus and having reserves. Two completely different things whatsoever. When we came into the government in 2016, there was zero reserves. In fact, that's why the famous statement came, something went wrong. A primary surplus has nothing to do with the reserves of a country. And the member ought to know better. In fact, so I just want to say that he's misleading the House. When we came into government in 2016, zero reserves. In fact, we were building up reserves for this country. And we used everything of the reserves when COVID came.
Mr. Speaker, only $7 million worth of income support were given to the people of this country during COVID. $7 million. Only, and that money came from the National Insurance Scheme. That's where it came from, Mr. Speaker. It came from National Insurance Company. That's where it came from. Nothing came from the government's reserves. Nothing. We inherited a primary deficit. That's how you manage a country. That's how you manage a country. On a primary deficit. And this year, there were primary surpluses. That's what we found. That's what we found from you. When he left, when the member of Viewfort South left it, there were primary surpluses. There were primary surpluses, you understand? But you know, the member for Miku South just stands up and says anything. And when the time comes, he goes into a pitiful. The poor people of this country, you said they should flog their party supporters. What is more racist? What is more Jim Crow than saying they should flog people? You stood up, you are on record as saying people should be flogged because they should flog publicly. And you believe you said it. And you believe that's okay, you can say it because you are you. And if Philip Lucia will forget you. You said the people, let us suppose you're referring only to members of the Labour Party. Let's refer, 43% of the people in this country always vote for the Labour Party. So you're saying that between 40 and 40% of people should be flogged. Should be flogged. Because you lost an election and you lost the election, you said they should be flogged. You're on record as saying that.
Mr. Speaker, again, the member is misleading the House. If he's going to make a comment about me, put it in the right context. Nobody said anybody should be flogged because the way that they voted in the election. In fact, if I remember, there was a person from their party that said that people should be flogged on the square.
Mr. Speaker, you know, that is the kind of thing that is not only misleading, but it's irritating, Mr. Speaker. The gentleman is on record as saying put the between the leopard should be flogged. Now he's saying he said it in context. You know, that's a context. Context, people were flogged. That's what you said. And you talk about racism. People were flogged. Flogging is a history of Jim Crow. And you're saying that all of us here, from the member from Miku, North, all of us here should be flogged because we are supporters of the Labour Party. That's what you said. And you refuse. You refuse to say, I should have said so. No, you don't say it, because you can say whatever you want. You're a product of Canada. Speaking about health and security levy, Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what the health and security levy has done for this country. The health and security levy has caused the commencement of universal health care. You spoke about health insurance. All what you know is plans. Plans for health insurance. For the 5 years, nothing. Then he speaks about he spent $6 million on sending people abroad for medical purposes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, $6 million you spent. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you the recent record for the Ministry of Health about what he left for us. Say he spent $6 million on health. Mr. Speaker, do you know that in people who went abroad for medical assistance, the member for Microsoft says he spent $6 million, Mr. Speaker. In accordance with your request, the Ministry of Health, Wellness and submits statements to outstanding medical assistance for your attention. This statement covers the period commencing 2019 to 2023 and totals $5,642,483.17. But he says he spent $6 million in 1 year. He spent $6 million in 1 year. He spent $6 million in 1 year. But look at this guy. Mr. Speaker, modern comedy. He spent $6 million in 1 year, but he left with a debt of $5 million for 3 years. Mr. Speaker, the member for Microsoft speaks about the price of oil. He says oil is 75 cents or less per barrel. Mr. Speaker, the price of Brent crude today is $81.63. But you know, he doesn't understand that anything he says can be fact-checked. And I have warned, and I did that from since I was in opposition. I told the people of St. Lucia, when the then Prime Minister opens his mouth, fact-check him. Yes. Like me, fact-check me. I want you to fact-check me. I've challenged you to fact-check me. And you're talking about you speak about, if I know about you. Mr. Speaker, he's speaking about cooking gas subsidy. As today, we are subsidizing cooking gas by over $20 per 22-pound cylinder. When he was in government, the biggest subsidy they had for cooking gas was $9. We are subsidizing by $20 per 22-pound cylinder of gas. We are subsidizing it. The people of this country, if it was not because of this government, would have been paying $20 more for a 22-pound cylinder of gas. And when he was there, the largest subsidy was between $8 and $10. You understand, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, he is speaking about this. The gentleman is speaking about the Carrie Chris report is for 2022. How can you have a report for 2023 when 2023 finishes? How can you have a report? All reports are 1 year pass. Financial statements all are 1 year pass. So if I'm reporting, I have to report on what I have. And just as a matter of fact, Carrie Chris lowered the ratings in 2020, yeah? Just an aside, if you forgot.
Who was minister?
Exactly, if you forgot.
Because of what?
Mr. Speaker, this member, the member from Mico South, has an excuse for everything, Mr. Speaker. He forgets that tourism is seasonal. He forgets completely tourism is seasonal. He forgets cruise ships that come in St. Lucia in September and August and June. The cruise season starts in November and moves into December. That's when cruise tourism starts. But I want to tell you, on the day you have your proposed match, there'll be about possibly 3 and possibly 6 cruise liners in this country. 3 or 4. If you are a man that believes in the people, save the taxi drivers and put a match on some other day. Yes, that's when they are driving them back to the cruise ship. You understand? If you are a man, thank you. You see? So, Mr. Speaker, universal healthcare. Mr. Speaker, universal healthcare has started, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, the man from Mico South is saying that we sold the pot. And my colleague, the deputy, will speak about the pot, Mr. Speaker. But before he speaks about the pot, let me tell the people of St. Lucia how this member of Mico distorts the facts. He distorts it in a way, said with his Canadian accent, that if you do not listen carefully, you'll believe him. He said that we sold Slasper. Let me tell you the revenue, and my colleague will expand on it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, first of all, GPH is only going to handle the cruise part of the port. The cruise. In 2019, 82% of the revenue from the port came from cargo. 82%. Only 11% came from cruise. But he said that this whole SASPA operations, but he forgot the instructions he gave to SASPA for the airports. For HIA. He forgot that. He forgot the instructions. He forgot. You see, Mr. Speaker, what hurts me, well, not that hurts me, I can't use that word for him. What hurts me is that this member, Mr. Speaker, he is so self-righteous. He made no mistakes. Everything his ministers did was right. He never said they did anything wrong. He never said, I will do things differently. Never. All what he knows is he's self-righteous and he attacks everybody and he believes his own truth. In 2022, 91% of Slasper's operations came from cargo. 4% came from cruise. But he says we sold the ports. In 2023, 86% of Slasper's revenue came from cargo. 9% came from cruise. He said we sold the ports. What we're doing is the government has transitioned the cruise part of the ports, the cruise part of the operation of Slasper to GPH, the cruise services, in exchange for investments, Mr. Speaker, and in exchange for taking the debt out of Slasper. So what will happen? And Slasper has begun. Slasper has bought a new crane to expand the port operations, Mr. Speaker. Hopefully we can expand it to some other destinations. That's what it is. So what we've done, what the government has done, they've diversified. They've put the cruise part, only the cruise, into a company, only the cruise in a company, and the revenue from the main revenue from the ports. The main revenue from the port, Mr. Speaker, comes from the cargo operations, which are going to be modernized, on the cruise, Mr. Speaker. So certainly, Mr. Speaker, the member from Mico South doesn't know about the seasonal nature of tourism. Mr. Speaker, the member from Mico South speaks about Grosile, speaks about the Grosile Highway. Mr. Speaker, the member from Vieux-Fort South was Prime Minister. We negotiated with the Kuwaitis. Mr. Speaker. for reconstruction of the Castries Grosley Highway. We negotiated with the member from Microsoft was a member for Viewfort South, was Prime Minister. We had a complete loan, for the reconstruction of the Castries Grosley Highway, together with the roads, the subsidiary roads, Mr. Speaker. The tender for that happened sometime in April or May. The member for Viewfort South, with his level of transparency, he saw that the results from a tender board, there was too much of a vast difference between the first tender, the highest tender, and the lowest tender. He instructed that it be retendered, and the retender happened on the 6th of June. When they won the election, Mr. Speaker, the retender incidentally was on the 6th of June. That's when the tenders board was supposed to meet. But you know what happened on the 6th of June. When they won the election, Mr. Speaker, the Kuwaitis called them and begged them, literally begged them to continue the highway. They literally begged them to continue the highway, Mr. Speaker. Also, and I want the farmers, because he spoke about bananas, Mr. Speaker. There was also, Mr. Speaker, there was also the plan to develop the feeder roads in the same Miko North and Viewfort North. The member for Viewfort South can testify to that these loans were signed and ready to go. When they came into government in June, they cancelled it. The Kuwaitis called me because they thought in St. Lucia there was transition. They followed transition. They called me and said to me, Minister, what is happening to these roads? I said to him, in our system, when you out, you out, and there is no contact for you, Mr. Speaker. And they could not believe that a loan that had been completed, that had been signed, Mr. Speaker, the government would just abandon it. So I want to tell the people of Grosley that any time they get stuck on the Grosley Highway, they must blame the member from Microsoft. Anytime they get stuck on the Grosley Highway, they must blame the member from Microsoft, because he was the one who cancelled the loan for the construction of the highway. And the records are there. And let's speak about records. These records are available. We can show it. He cancelled the loan, Mr. Speaker. He cancelled the loan. And the Kuwaitis, Mr. Speaker, they begged the government not to complete, not to ban, not to stop that construction, Mr. Speaker. But you know, again, instead of he just says to himself, I made an error. But read it out like a little child is father take his toys. That's how he behaves. Because he doesn't admit, and say, listen to me, there was an error in judgment, I thought we had done something different. Say that. Just say it. We may understand. Because you in government, we took responsibility. We said that we are not, after we got the report from the committee, we said we are not going your way in St. Jude. We are going the way of continuing work on the existing buildings. We took responsibility for our actions. We said we are not continuing on your $1 billion airport. We are going to redo the terminal. We took responsibility for our actions. We took responsibility. We said we took decisions and we took responsibility. But you refuse to take any responsibility for the decisions that you make. And you want people to get your vote back for you. No responsibility. He did everything right. Everybody was wrong. 15-2 is no margin. Nothing was wrong. You were perfect, and you lost the election because of what reason? You were perfect. I've heard the member from Viewfort South say he would do certain things differently, but not you. You're right. You're self-righteous, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, then finally he speaks about COVID. You mean tell me the member from Microsoft can bring back COVID deaths in 2023 to score points? You bring back COVID deaths? I mean, where? The member for Microsoft knows very well the deadly Delta variant was not in government was not there when he was in government. But we will not bring that back. That's a fact. The Delta variant came in the year 2021 to 2022. That's when it came. But you want to argue about that? You want to make a fuss? Delta deaths, deaths from COVID. Mr. Speaker, where are we? Where are we? Where are we in a country? You want to go back to that, Mr. Speaker? Then you speak about $1,500. I said what I said. I'm going to repeat. And you want to pay tips? You can pay tips. What I said, and I repeat it. What I said was you are given $500 from NIC. If we were in government, at the time, we would have given $1,500, and I stand by it. And I'm saying to you right now, we are giving the public of St. Lucia, through the Ministry of Equity, those who deserve it. 5,000 of them are going to get $1,500 each. And that is a fact. That is not a plan. That's not something we would do. That's not something we try and do. That's not something you write on a piece of paper. That's not something a plan. Oh, we would have done that. We would have done that. We are doing it. We are doing it, Mr. Speaker. We are doing it. It's not 500 again. Not 500, not 1,500. Mr. Speaker, you know, Mr. Speaker, then finally, what was even more surprising, Mr. Speaker? And I don't want to speak about, I don't want to say that. I'm not going to say it because I have a responsibility. Because my job, our jobs here are temporary jobs. All of us will not be held every time we leave. We have a responsibility to the country, Mr. Speaker. I will not speak about Bank of St. Lucia. I will never do what he did. Never. Because, and the member for Shoresdale should stand up and disassociate himself from these statements, Mr. Speaker. But I won't get involved in that. But you know, but that is the responsibility. What he believes is you must burn the house to kill a rat. It's a scorched earth policy. You go and you say all what you can say, mash it up, just because you're not in power, and hopefully you can rebuild it. That's not how we behave in opposition. Not how we behave. In opposition, we were tough, but we were tough on facts. We weren't reckless. We never spoke about war. We never spoke about flogging people. We never spoke about people's parts. We never called people mongrels, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, and I reiterate, Mr. Speaker, that the member from Microsoft, anytime he opens his mouth, I want to tell the public sector to fact check him. Anytime he opens his mouth, because he just says things, just 20%, 40%, 90%, all kinds of things. We want 4,500, all kinds of things, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the facts are with us, and I want to thank the people of St. Lucia. We are going to be having discussions because, you know, the supermarket structure in St. Lucia is such, not because of the government. The supermarket is run basically by one player. That's a fact. It's run largely by one player. What we are doing, Mr. Speaker, it's a fact. What we're doing is that we are going to hold some discussions so we can see how we can elevate the situation. Because we understand the price of goods are going up. We understand it. You talk about subsidizing flour. You were the first guy, the member of Microsoft. He's on record as saying this government has an idea by reducing the price of flour and sugar, they help the poor. That's what he said, you know. He said that on a program. He said our idea of helping the poor is to subsidize rice, flour, and sugar. He forgot that. He said so on a program. He was criticizing us for saying that. Now you want to say we must do it after we do it already. But that is a double standard, and that's why you must fact check him. You must fact check him, Mr. Speaker, because he says things on one side and he achieves in his self-righteous posture and goes into helping the poor. My colleagues spoke about helping the poor. You call the poor medicants. You call them medicants. You said, yes. You said you were the one who said our patrimony is in our credit card. And you spoke about, you speaking about the poor.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, again, I'm going to ask the member to withdraw that statement. I have never referred to poor people as being mendicants. I mean, I can sit here and allow some of the other stuff to take place.
You said...
But the fact is, I have never once...
You never used the word mendicants?
Huh?
You didn't use the mendicants?
Not to describe a poor person.
What are you describing? Who are you describing?
Your business.
Who are you describing?
I'm going to tell you.
Exactly.
You tell me.
Who are you
You're the one quoting me.
You said...
You're the one quoting me.
You said...
I never said...
the mendicants. And you also said that the lady who bought the land... The lady who bought the land...
Unless the member has any proof...
The lady who bought the land...
I'm asking him to withdraw this.
The lady who bought the land at Banan, you said she was a non-entity.
Yes.
You didn't say that either.
Business-wise, she's a non-entity.
Exactly. You understand? What you do is that you just, when you caught, instead of getting up and listen to me, that is something I should have said.
Member Castro, yes, member.
Mr. Speaker, again, the member is misleading the House. Okay, if he wants to remember when I spoke about mendicants, I said that he is making the people in this country mendicants and his policies. And with the lady who bought the property, that she was a non-entity as a business person. And we've clarified that. But if you want to continue to do and make those kind of things, but I'm going to, from now on, Mr. Speaker, every single time that there's a misquote, like him, I'm going to stand up and ask for that statement to be withdrawn because it's not a factually correct statement. I never called people mendicants. And I made reference to the young lady as being a non-entity from a business perspective. And instead of being more concerned as to why she bought the land and how she bought the land, he wants to detract and speak about something completely superficial.
Mr. Speaker, you see what he calls superficial? A young person going to business. That's what he calls superficial. It's a young person going to business because it's superficial. But that's the same member. That's the same member who can try to justify giving 1,000 acres of land to one man based on plans, on renderings. That's the same member who said he was not building a set of islands. He went to the States and he said, I've got $2 billion worth of investment. The guy says, 2 billion? He said, yeah, 2 billion. So a friend of mine says, 2 billion? He said, yes, 2 billion US. Deny.
Are you saying that?
You said it. I'm repeating you. You understand? I'm repeating, Mr. Speaker. I'm repeating you, Mr. Speaker. But you know, that's the delusion that he's suffering from. The delusion that he's suffering from, Mr. Speaker. But we are focused. So that will not take us off focus, Mr. Speaker. So the value-added tax from barrels is to assist the people of this country. And I am saying that we are going to continue, Mr. Speaker, to continue the policies that benefit the people of this country. And we will not be distracted by people who do not understand that the people of St. Lucia took a decision. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank you very much.
Honourable members, the question is that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 3, Number 3 order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to A. Exempt imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period commencing from the first day of November 2023 and terminating on the 29th day of February 2024. B. Exempt imports of toys, food supplies, and care packages by a member of the House of Assembly for the benefit of children, the vulnerable, and needy persons in the constituency of the member of the House of Assembly for the period commencing from the first day of November 2023 and terminating on the 31st day of January 2024. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Member for Castries South.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that this House stands suspended until 3:15.
Honourable members, the question is that this House do stand suspended until 3:15 this afternoon.
Mr. Speaker, on the point of clarification, can I?
Yes.
Because the member for Cast for Miku South said that 800 people died during the he said 800 people died. I want to put on the record, Mr. Speaker, that is actually 410 people.
So I now put the question. As many as their opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting suspended.
All right.
No, you tell me.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, viewers. You're watching NTN. We have now come to the end of the first session of the live parliamentary proceedings this morning. Several papers. I'm here. My name is Virgil Leonti with
Michael Gaston.
And Michael, this morning, what a fiery session it was. And most of this debate came from a motion moved by Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre concerning an amendment to the draft value-added tax. And principally, this amendment was proposed to facilitate the barrel concessions, which starts on the first day of November 2023 and ending on the 29th day of February 2024. There was a second part to this resolution where it would also exempt personal items, food, clothing, toys, etc. This, of course, is referred to more commonly as our barrel concessions. But Part B also made provisions so that parliamentarians would be included, would also be eligible for those concessions to assist the constituents.
Oui, bon après-midi. Comme Virgil dit, nous on a fini la session qui était chaud tout bonnement. Enfin, depuis le commencement, le Premier ministre a fait un statement sur la situation, ça a dit un rapport ça a créé un rapport Carrie Christ qui a détaillé la situation de l'économie du pays. Enfin, le rapport ça a montré que la situation économique du pays est bon tout bonnement. Avec ça, commencé à chaque débat. Avec là même après ça, nous avons une résolution qui le Premier ministre a passé pour assister les gens qui, comme la coutume, qui a fait combien d'années à présent, côté assister les gens qui étaient barrés, sortis de l'Amérique, enfin l'autre pays, mettez comme ça, pour ça payer moins l'argent. Ça, c'est un bagage qui a continué pour un chai temps, avec ça, on est cause un chai débat, mais en finissement, ce n'est pas tous ces membres parlementaires qui parlaient à ça, mais la dernière chai interruption entre façade opposition, c'est chef façade opposition, et puis façade gouvernement à sous motion ça là et bien résolution ça là qui fait tellement intéressant.
Tu can enjoy debate.
Oui, moi quand même il est chaud comme ça, moi quand même ça.
Just the Prime Minister during his presentation, and I think it's important that we just highlight that he made an appeal to solutions to ensure that with the imports coming into the barrel, that they should stick to what is legal, make sure that it was everything coming through was legal, toys, food items, personal care items. He spoke, of course, against the importation of firearms, the illegal traffic of firearms, and urged solutions not to use the barrel concessions for such activities. The leader of the opposition, or the member from Micoud North, he had several objections, but one of the key things he was asking for was that the government extend the barrel concessions. Of course, that was rebutted by some of the parliamentary members on the government side, noting the cost implications. And all in all, Mike, as you said, it was a broad debate which centered mostly on this, although it touched on other political aspects, most notably the GPH holding, and I think that will go into this afternoon's session, as was indicated by the member for Castle South.
Oui, c'est après-midi, là, nous dévirer à 3h, après 3h, il va continuer la deuxième session avec un comme côté Gatan, il était un premier ministre avec l'autre membre de la ben nous inception que nous allons aller bien tard aujourd'hui. Alors nous allons inviter pour rester nous avec nous allons dévier maintenant dévier en studio nous. Jusqu'à temps nous dévier à Yonka après 3 heures.